can you call a roll, please?
Commissioner Bork,
Commissioner Gwark here.
Commissioner Volpe. Here. Commissioner Volpe here. Commissioner Walowski,
Walowski here.
Commissioner Locks,
Commissioner Locke's here.
alternate Commissioner Albanese,
Albanese here.
alternate Commissioner Coles,
Alternate Coles here.
alternate Commissioner Cavello, alternate Commissioner Savicle, Commissioner Santiago, or Santiago,
Tego here.
sorry. Vice Chair Salka,
Selka here.
and Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's here. So we have a quorum. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can all remain standing for a moment of silent reflection as well. Thank you, everybody. Just before we move into the approval of the minutes, I will mention that Commissioner Coviello did reach out to me. He is the proud father of a baby boy born this morning, so I thought I'd share that news with everybody. And under item number 6, we're looking for a motion to approve the minutes from August 17th.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the minutes from the August 17th meeting.
Commissioner Salko with a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Volpe with a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7A, Wesley Coe, special permit application to construct a garage which will be in excess of 3 spaces, property located at 131, AKA 137 Mount Vernon Road in an R2025 zone, SPU 651. This is continued from our public hearing on August 17th. I understand the applicant is seeking a tabling on this, Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to table this?
Mr. Chair, make a motion to table SPU 651.
Commissioner Salko with a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Walowski with a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7B, Lovely Development, Inc., special permit application to establish an open space preservation subdivision, property located at 1268 West Street, owned by CB West LLC et al. In an R40 zone, SPU 652. This is a public hearing that's continuing from our last meeting on August 17th. Seb, while you're setting up there, I'm just going to remind folks that the town directive is that everybody needs to wear a mask when they're sitting indoors in any town building. If someone doesn't have a mask and needs one, I think we have some somewhere. And anyone who, for us, once we're 6 feet apart, we have the option to remove. If someone doesn't have a mask and needs one, I think we have some somewhere. Who is that? And anyone who, for us, once we're 6 feet apart, we have the option to remove our.
That's the online feed.
The playback, no.
The shade
Who is
you
that?
just gave
I
here.
don't recognize my own voice. It's even worse.
Just remember.
Commissioners who are sitting up here have the
That's the
option because
online
we're
feed.
spaced 6 Playback, feet no. apart
That's
from each
scary.
other.
The shade you just gave
I didn't
here.
even recognize my own voice. It's even worse.
It's memorable. We gotta make light of it.
Okay, this doesn't work.
Commissioners who are sitting up here have the option because we're spaced 6 feet apart from each other. It's like a
We gotta make
delayed
light of it.
Okay, this isn't
That's a
working.
good one.
Anyways, we have the option to remove our masks because we are spaced 6 feet apart from each other, and that's in consistency with the directive that we were given
That's
by
a
the
good one.
town, so. Anyways, we have the option to remove our masks because we are spaced 6 feet apart from each other, and that's in consistency.
Echo.
We have the IT problems today, Seb,
ready?
go figure.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
I need to recuse myself for this application.
okay, Commissioner Gwark is recused, I'll seat Commissioner Albanese in his place. We get that resolved? Take it away, Seb.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. Sev Bovino, planner, Lucrezia Jones, represented the applicant. For orientation, the map on the screen here, this is Churchill Street, north is up. The property is outlined in light green and dark green with wetlands outlined in blue. The proposal in front of you is, as I said at the last meeting, for an open space. In light green and dark green with wetlands outlined in blue. The proposal in front of you is, as I said at the last meeting, for an open space.
At least I can hear that version.
Guess they want you speaking closer to the mic.
Closer
Yeah.
to the mic.
Yeah.
you need to speak louder
Oh.
into the mic, please.
Yeah.
The proposal in front of you is for an open space subdivision for the property, which is 49.14 acres. The proposed number of lots for this is 36 lots. The standard is 34 lots. However, the number of lots will not be determined by this presentation here. It will be determined by the actual design as we go along. It's based on a formula. Actually, the formula on the sheet, which is on the upper section of the map, indicates that we can have 44 lots, and we propose in 36. The proposed, at the last meeting, there were some questions from the chair and from the public. So we can have 44 lots, and we propose in 36. The proposed, at the last meeting, there were some questions from the chair and from the public. The request was to have a map which showed the topography on both layouts. I provided that topography, which is shown on the sheet here, and I provided it to staff prior to the meeting. I think it was on Friday, so to circulate it to the commissioners for their review. If you have any question on that, I'll be glad to answer. The commissioner wanted to know percentage of open space as it relates to the wetlands. The wetland area is 4.415 acres. Under the standard subdivision, we will give 3.98 acres of open space, which will have some upland area. In this corner here, we would have some upland area in addition to the wetlands, and some of this wetlands will be outside of the open space. On the open space concept, we're proposing to give 17.76 acres, which equals the 24% of the wetland area. So you'll have the wetland area, and then all this area here, it's open space, is upland, and whoever came for 4% of the wetland area. So you'll have the wetland area, and then all this area here, it's open space, is upland, and whoever came for the walk. So you'll have the area, and then all this area here, it's open space, is upland, and during the on-site walk, we came from the north along this open road here, and then came.
Seb, can you speak closer to the microphone and just enunciate a little bit
It's
better?
right here. I don't know what's happening.
Well, people are having
Yeah.
problems hearing.
Microphone might be off,
Is it?
so that it doesn't get.
Is your green light
I
on?
see the green
Green
light.
light's on.
I see the green light on. So,
Go ahead, Seb. I'll try to figure out what's going on.
Maybe you can make it louder if you push it. Yeah, push it to the right.
Say something.
hello? Anybody hear me?
Is that better? No.
I'll try to speak louder then. Okay. During the on-site walk, we came on the north side of the property here. I'll try to speak louder then. We used. Okay. During the on-site walk, we came on the north side of the property here. We used the.
Seb, let's take a 5-minute break here and try to figure out what's going on back there, okay? Because it's distracting and
Some is going on.
it's not working. Just give us a little bit of time, please.
That's causing it.
Seth, could you do it loud enough without the speaker? Could you do it loud enough without that? Probably not, huh?
Oh, yeah, I could probably speak loud enough with that, without it, but.
We always record it, but we're not.
You don't always stream them?
No, well.
An email, but I can't tell you now.
No, that's fine, I see it, I see it. I got it.
Who was it?
Can you hear me now?
Pressing things.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I know.
Is that louder? No? It always worked.
Now there's no sound.
It always worked.
Oh, that
Now
sounds.
there's
That
no.
was great.
Delayed action.
I didn't know you were a ventriloquist. That was good. Then let that do it, I know.
Oh, that sounds.
That was great.
Oh, there's something.
Then let that do it, I know.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Any better? No?
Oh, there's something.
Is it his mic or?
Then let that do it, I know.
Can you hear me now?
No.
That sounded good.
Any better? No?
You're better off not talking.
Can you hear me now?
That sounded good.
How about now?
You're better off not talking.
Maybe I should do the presentation and then delay it.
Rotated and loop right back.
How about now?
We show it.
Can you hear me now? Maybe I should do the presentation and then delay it.
Or tape it and then we show it.
Can you hear me now? Better? Any better now?
Oh, wow.
Sure you can't hear me,
I was
huh?
telling
Can you hear me now?
Caleb before I forgot my laptop at the museum, so I was like, I could either go back to
Any better now?
but it's dark in
Second.
there.
Sure you can't hear me, huh? I don't know.
I thought it was the best.
Handheld? Do we have a handheld mic?
Any better now?
We don't have a handheld?
Second.
It's always
I don't know. That's what.
Handheld? Do we have a handheld mic?
They erased it already, but.
It's always something.
Do we have a handheld mic?
I thought we were done
Yeah.
with problems when we were done being virtual.
I know it. I
That
know
would
it.
be smart, maybe reboot or something, they have to reset on that end.
Still early.
Is that better now? Can you hear me? No? No? Wow. Okay. We have to, I just have to scream then. That works. All right, let's try.
Better.
All right, let's try again, go ahead.
I'll try to speak very loud and see what happens.
That'll be good.
All right, during the sidewalk, we went north of the property line from West Street on this existing roadway, and then we cut through the upland area. There was a very nice walkway through here, natural walkway, and you saw the type of trees, the type of vegetation that's in that area. And that would be the open space that would be granted to the town as part of the open space subdivision concept. I checked the database for any threatened species, endangered species. There were none reported on that database. In regard to the loop road, question came up on the loop road. We are proposing a connection to the north of this property, which will connect to West Pine, and eventually could go to, if someone chooses to go to Welchwood. There was a question about where the open space that we are proposing is next to additional open space. The open space that's next to us, it's right here in this corner. It's a large piece of property owned by the fishing club. And there's few homes around the lake, and the rest is basically open. There is no official open space next to us, but that is considered open space because it would not be developed next to us in that corner specifically. And that open space owned by Fishing Club goes all the way to Welch Road. The individual lots as designed and the road the way it's designed minimize or eliminates the site natural features disturbance. So the natural features of this site obviously is the wetland area with the associated wood area to the east and to the west. We preserving all of the west section and quite a bit of the eastern section of this upland area with the open space concept. There was a question about visibility. The open space will be visible from the neighborhood in this area here. So most of the people living in these homes here will obviously enjoy and can use the open space that we are proposing. And as far as the visibility, this property rises from 210 to 270. So some of this could be visible from half of the homes up in this area here. We believe that the proposal accomplishes two or more of the purposes set forth in section 307.2 of your regulations. I have looked into those issues that the chair has asked me to look into it. We believe that this proposal is the proper way to develop this piece of property. We could do it both ways, but this would be a better way, we believe. And there was a question about traffic in the neighborhood. I tried to address it at the time. But tonight we have a traffic engineer here that can go over the report that was generated by Haskell Associates. So I'll have him come up and talk about that and respond to any of your questions. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. Could you come up and introduce the traffic? Can you talk about the traffic? Oh, you go first. Oh, I do want to introduce into the record a map that shows where the fishing club is in relation to our property, so that it's in the record.
Thanks, Seth.
We'll get rid of this for a minute. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners. Mark Lovely, president of Lovely Development with offices at 710 Main Street, Plantsville, Connecticut. You had some questions last time, I think about, I had 7 of them that were more directed at me, and I'll go over those now. We do have an associate from Hesketh and Associates here tonight, and he'll get up after me to give a presentation. But there was a question whether we were going to use the state numbers for out at West Street, and we are using those. Those have been updated, and they've been looking at that that corridor pretty rarely, so we will be using those. There was a question about the debris on the property. And the debris, we've already contracted or talked to AES Remediation Contracting to be able to remove that stuff from the site in a legal manner and a professional manner. Your own Commissioner, Jeff Bork, is abstaining himself because he will be doing our phase 1 on the property after we're completed, which he does all of ours. There was a question whether the property was historic. I did confirm with the seller's attorney that it is not historic in any nature. There was a question from the neighbor at 5 Brothers Way, which he actually called me today, and there was a question on the impact of him on how he would be impacted with either subdivision. With the open space subdivision, this roadway right here going through Churchill would not be built. This area here abutting him and over in here would all stay natural. So what you're getting is you're getting your 17 acres, and this roadway would not be being built going through. Just the roadway would be coming in across from Brothers Way. There was a question, and I did talk to him tonight. I don't know if he ended up coming tonight, but he didn't think he was going to make it, so I talked to him, and he said he was going to email Mary Ellen. There was a question of what the price of the homes will be. The price of the homes for 2,500 square feet will start at $625 to $650 and go up to about $900,000. We actually, just from people finding out about this, we actually have a list of 15 people that are already interested in the property, in purchasing a home in here. There was a question whether we had a contract on the property and how we controlled the property. Right now, we are under contract to do either this open space subdivision or do a standard subdivision. So if the commission decided they didn't like the open space concept, we would be coming in with a open space subdivision, which would meet the regular regulations. A couple questions is, when Sev designed this, he designed this not looking at topo, because you always print out what lots you can get on it. Right now, we're showing 36 lots. We feel that we're most likely gonna be closer to the 34, just like the conventional subdivision, because if you look at the grades up in here, the grading gets up to 20% up in this area, so this cul-de-sac's gonna have to be pulled back, and we're probably gonna end up losing a couple lots here. So we'll probably be, with this open space subdivision, about the exact same number of lots that we would be with a conventional subdivision. With a conventional subdivision, we're using a lot more land, so we're able to get the 17 acres this way, and still keeping about the same amount of lots that we would have in the conventional. There was another question of clearing. What we'd have to do if we did go open space, with your requirements, there's a 20-foot buffer that goes along these houses right here. We designed these lots deeper. These lots are over 300 feet deep. So we wouldn't have a problem if the commission wanted us to go 30 to 40 feet with a buffer zone around here and put it so no neighbors can ever do it. We would be willing to do that also. To keep and have a nice contrast between these lots and the lots over here, because these are 300 feet deep. So I think that was the questions that were asked of me last time. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mark, could I just for the purposes of the commission members, to frame the matter that's in front of us right now. This is not a site, we're not looking at a site plan.
No.
A site plan will come later on in the process. Right now, what we're considering, was under consideration by us, is whether we want a conventional subdivision or an open space subdivision. And then once we approve one or the other, they're gonna come back, Mark would have to come back and present us with a site plan. And that's where we can start having conversations about buffers and road design and where it comes out and what that ends up looking like. But right now, we're not into those weeds quite yet. So I just want to make sure that people are focused in on what we're actually considering on the application right now that's in front of us.
100% correct. You're 100% correct. We're basically, right now, the idea is whether we want to go with an open space and have 17 acres of open space, or go with a standard subdivision that would be about 3.75 acres of open space. So we're looking at a lot more open space and a lot less infrastructure with this application.
Okay. Anyone else for Mark, or we're gonna get the traffic engineer to come up and talk to us about his report?
Perfect. I'll bring him up now.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Guled Mahmood. I'm a traffic engineer with F.A. Hesketh & Associates. I've been with the firm for 3 years now, and prior to that, I worked for the Connecticut Department of Transportation for 2.5 years. Our office prepared a report dated August 25th, 2021, that was submitted in support of this application. I'm filling in for Scott Hesketh, who signed the report. He is currently away on vacation. We were asked to review the existing roadway conditions and to determine the potential impact of the traffic associated with the proposed development. The site is located on the north side of Churchill Street, opposite Brothers Way and west of Route 229 West Street. The property is currently vacant land. Churchill Street is a town-maintained roadway that originates at an unsignalized T intersection with West Street and extends in a westerly direction, a distance of approximately 1,800 feet to Brothers Way, where the pavement terminates. For approximately 1,000 feet, Churchill Street provides 22 to 24 feet of pavement with a single travel lane in each direction. The roadway then widens to provide 30 feet of pavement with a single travel lane in each direction and sidewalks on one or both sides of the roadway. The posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. The roadway serves single-family residents. We have examined CONDOT traffic volume counts on West Street, Route 229. The counts that we found had the highest traffic volumes were dated were from October 2015, which showed an ADT of 21 21,800 vehicles per day, an AM peak hour of 1,824 vehicles, and a PM peak hour of 1,981 vehicles. Review of recent conduct data shows that traffic has increased approximately 0.8% per year between 2009 and 2015. Based on our findings, volumes were increased 1% per year to a 2022 design year. In order to determine the trip generation for the proposed subdivision, the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation report was consulted. Trip generations estimates for many land uses based on counts conducted at existing facilities throughout the country. Included within the ITE database is Land Use Code 210, which is for single-family detached housing, and Land Use Code 220. Our site-generated traffic showed us that for a conventional lot subdivision of 33 units, the ADT would be 375 trips on a daily basis, with AM peak hours of 28 trips and PM peak hour volume of 35 trips. The open space lot subdivision was analyzed for 36 units, which Mark stated would be less, but we found for 36 units, the average daily trips would be 406, so plus 31 more trips than the conventional use. 30 trips in the morning peak hour, which is only 2 more trips than the conventional use, and 38 trips in the afternoon peak hour would be an additional 3 trips from the conventional use. For analysis purposes, trip generation was calculated for the existing 60 residential units with access to Churchill Street and for the combined proposed 96 unit development, including the 60, which includes the 60 existing units and the 36 proposed units. The existing units generate an ADT of 650 trips on a daily basis, with 47 trips during the morning peak hour and 62 during the afternoon. The combined, so including our proposed trips, would be an ADT of 1,001 trips on a daily basis, with 73 morning peak hour trips, which is an addition of 26 trips to the existing conditions, and 98 afternoon peak hour trips, which would be an existing of 36 trips to the existing conditions. We have assumed a directional distribution of 50% to the north and 50% to the south along Route 229. This distribution is generally reflective of the distribution of the background traffic volumes. The proposed open space subdivision allows for access to the adjacent parcel to the north of the subdivision. That property currently owned by Bango Farms LLC has access to Pine Hollow Drive and West Pines Drive, which also allows access through a residential subdivision to Welch Road. The intersection of Welch Road and Route 229 is under signalized control. Residents within the proposed open space subdivision wishing to travel to and from the north on Route 229 would have the option to utilize Welch Road, the Welch Road signal, or in the case of entering traffic, to utilize West Pines Drive. When the Bango Farms parcel is subdivided, it has the potential to have an additional 20 single-family residences. To account for this increase in the development, we have calculated the trip generation for these 20 units as well. So the combined future proposed development of 116 units would be an ADT of 1,192 trips on a daily basis, 87 trips during the morning peak hour, which would be 40 plus trips from the 40 plus trips to the existing 60 units, and 98 trips in the afternoon peak hour, which would be an additional 55 trips to the existing conditions. Capacity analysis were conducted for the background and combined traffic volumes for the intersection of West Street and Churchill Street for the morning and afternoon peak hours. This is an existing unsignalized intersection with West Street oriented in the north and south direction. The northbound approach provides 2 lanes, and the southbound approach provides a single lane. Churchill Street approaches from the west and operates under stop sign control. An analysis of the background traffic conditions indicates that the northbound and southbound approaches of West Street operate at a level of service A during peak hours. The Churchill Street approach operates at a level of service E during the morning peak hour and at a level of service F with an average delay of 50 seconds per vehicle during the afternoon peak hour. With the introduction of site-generated traffic, The West Street approaches will continue to operate at a level of service A during peak hours. The Churchill Street approach will operate at a level of service F during the morning and afternoon peak hours, with average delays of 67 and 69 seconds per vehicle, respectively. An analysis of the future development traffic indicates that the West Street approaches will continue to operate at a level of service A during peak hours. So now I will go over the future, which includes the 116 units, and that indicates that the level of service A for the West Street approaches will remain at level of service A. The Churchill Street approach will operate at level of service F during the morning and afternoon peak hours, with average delays of 52 seconds per vehicle during the peak hours. These delays are similar to the background traffic volume conditions. The results are summarized in Table 3 of the traffic report that was submitted. The proposed site access will intersect Churchill Street directly opposite Brothers Way. The available site distance at the proposed site access is in excess of 335 feet in each direction. The available site distance meets the current conduit requirements for an approach speed in excess of 30 miles per hour. Churchill is posted at 25 miles per hour. The proposed 36-lot open space subdivision is projected to generate an additional 351 trips daily, with 26 and 36 new trips during the morning and afternoon peak hours, respectively. The intersection of West Street and Churchill Street will operate at acceptable levels of service, with the Churchill Street approach experiencing delays of up to 68 seconds per vehicle during the afternoon peak hour. With the development of the Bango Farms parcel, there will be additional traffic, but also the opportunity for traffic to utilize other roadways for access to Route 229. Under this future scenario, the intersection of Route 229 and Churchill Street will operate at the same level of service as under background conditions. The proposed site access roadway is properly located with respect to adjacent intersections and with respect to the available intersection site distance. Based on the information and analysis as outlined in the submitted letter, it is my professional opinion that the proposed subdivision will not have a significant detrimental impact on traffic operations on area roadways. Open to questions?
You all set? Any questions?
I just have one, and looking at your,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's all right,
Mr.
go
Chairman. Looking at your conclusion, you're basically saying there's going to be 26 trips and 36 new trips
Yes.
during peak hours.
Yes, for the, it will be slightly less because, as Mark stated, we analyzed our report for 36 units, and he's looking closer to 34. So there will be a couple trips less, but
Okay.
about that.
And you're talking 68 seconds per vehicle wait time at that intersection of Churchill and West Street, correct?
Yes.
What do you anticipate, for example, during the peak hour, what would be the backup then coming off of Churchill onto West if it's 68 seconds, worst case? And how many vehicles would you anticipate? Let's say there's 10 backup, that's over 10 minutes that the 10th vehicle would wait to get out onto West Street. And that's assuming that all 10 vehicles aren't going to take a left heading north. Do you have an idea of what the backup would be?
I have not analyzed the backup myself currently. I can analyze that and get back to you. But for reference, the background currently has an average delay of 50 seconds per vehicle for existing conditions. So you can compare the 68 seconds proposed to the 50 seconds existing. And if the Bango Farms is approved or is constructed, then residents will be able to utilize other roadways. And we do see when that condition is analyzed that the delay times are closer to background conditions.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you all set? Any other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Volpe, go ahead.
So it was submitted to the record that there is a current traffic study being conducted on the Route 229 corridor. Did you look at or compare any of the data that you presented to us this evening in comparison to the ongoing study that's being conducted?
So my supervisor, Scott, is the one who mainly worked on this report.
Yeah.
I do know, as a rule of practice, we always use the highest traffic volumes we find and grow from that point. As you said, those studies seem to be ongoing, So I will be able to look at them and incorporate them if they do reflect higher traffic volumes than we are using in our background analysis. But we did use the highest traffic volumes that we had available to us when writing the report.
Okay, thank you.
You all set, Christine?
I am.
You all set? Any other questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Coles?
Can I just follow up on that question? How old is that traffic study? I'm sorry if it was already answered.
Oh, it's from August 25th, 2021. I can get the exact date for you.
20 years old.
Excuse me?
20 years old?
No,
21.
2021.
21. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's new.
You all set, Caleb?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the commission? Can we, please? Any other questions from members of the commission? Seeing none, you guys all set? Okay,
Regards to the traffic study or questions?
it's the application right now.
All right, I just had something I wanted to,
Commissioner Wolowski, go ahead.
and this is for Mark or Seb, whoever wants. So my interpretation of what I'm seeing here on the open space proposal versus the conventional, and if we start at the intersection of Brothers Way and Churchill, that the open space proposal has two homes that are new construction at that intersection, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That, what happens is,
On the conventional subdivision, from what I see, there's 5.
exactly,
Okay.
100% correct.
So now if we're moving towards West Street, there are 8 current homes along Churchill that will be direct property abutters to either proposal.
Exactly.
Now, in the conventional proposal, there are 7 new homes.
Yes, and then the conventionals,
And in the open space proposal, there are 9.
yes, and the,
Direct impact on these people, if we add everything together, is for property abutters of this neighborhood, with the open space plan, there's 11 new homes proposed versus 12.
exactly. And the other,
One less home, and the town gets 17 acres versus
100% correct.
4.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing is we have, with this type of regulation, this, we have to keep a buffer zone there with a R40. We do not have to keep a buffer zone up against the houses. So somebody could cut right to the back property line. And like I said, we're willing to keep an extra buffer there instead of the standard 20, go down to the 40.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just wanted to clarify that for probably everyone in the room. Additionally, is now, if there is future development, you have no problem with it on another parcel with us stipulating that there's another means of exit out of that area.
We are going to put a stub up to the north that will get into the
So
Bagnell
assuming-
property.
So, but you're fine if we stipulate that as
Exactly,
well?
that's not a problem at all, definitely. Yep, and then actually we are, the Bagnell parcel is on the market as we speak. So really what this comes down to, whether we want an open space subdivision with 17 acres or we want 3.4 with a conventional subdivision. So either one is gonna be here, so it's basically which one we want. And like I say, this one here shows 36, but there's no way we're gonna be able to get 36 there with those slopes.
You all set, Steve?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Before we open up to the members of the public, is there any other questions from members of the commission? Seeing none, is there anyone here to testify in favor of this application? I'm just gonna remind people, if you testified at the last public hearing, what you said is on the record. You do not need to come up again and say it again. And that's in consideration of everybody up here as well as everybody back there, because we have other applicants in the room as well. So we'll call one more time. Is there anyone here who is here to testify in favor of this application? Seeing none, is there anyone here to testify in opposition to this application? Please come up, state your name and your address for us so we get it on the record, and share your thoughts.
My name is Mohammed Khan from 52 Brothers Way, Southington. Mark Lovely is doing an excellent job. He developed on the next door also. we have no problem for him to develop that area, but he should have at least open the conventional plan, which is calls for 1 acre of land, because the value of homes, we have more than acre. And the second thing also, I mean, in the front, they propose a couple of acres for commercial. Why can't they open from there and exit? You know, safety is more important. You know, that's it.
Okay,
I'm in a favor of that, I mean, commercial plan, but not in favor of this one.
okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Anyone else to testify in opposition to the application? If you all want to form a line, that'd be great too. It might speed things along a little bit.
Mario Saraceno, 6 Amber Lane. Not really against the proposal. From what I understood from the last meeting, development was going to happen. It's either option 1 or this option 2, which seems to be somewhat modified. From where my house is, my preference is option 2 with the extra buffer, et cetera. But I do have a couple questions that came up tonight. One of them is the commissioner had stated that these are not the site plans, and the site plans would be modified after the approval of one or the other. Is there any degree of variation to this layout that would be, or the degree of change to this layout that there might be? Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, all right, of the 2 options, this to me is the lesser of the 2 evils. But if the as-built or if the site plans are going to be significantly different, then I may change my opinion on it. So the layouts at 34, 34 houses at, this zone, I do have concerns with regard to the traffic study. And I think as a point of clarification, there was a question that was asked from the board member that said, when were the numbers derived? I believe the answer was August of 2021. But my understanding was that the numbers that were actually initially used were from 2015, and then variables were added to that to arrive at the estimates for 2021. Right, so with that point, I would also offer that I have a lot of concerns with regard to the amount of traffic, because depending on what happens, and I appreciate the stipulation of the stub, but I also have a concern that in the northbound development, it may, depending on what the egress is onto West Street from whatever that new development is, would it be more attractive for someone to then cut through this neighborhood here, this new neighborhood here, come out onto Brothers Way, and then, in essence, increase the amount of traffic that comes out onto Churchill and then onto 229. So those are the reservations that I would have that I would imagine would be addressed as the site plans get developed. But if they go favorably, in my opinion, then I don't have an issue with it. If they don't, and then what recourse do we have to then come back and say, hey, this is a lot different than what we spoke about on 7 September, and how can we reopen that case if necessary?
So Martin, just like everything that's said by members of the public is on the record, so is the comments made by the applicant as well. And the line of defense, if you will, to make sure that they hold to the word that they're saying here are the people that are sitting up here. Because I know if I'm here when that comes up, I'll remember what was said, and I'll make sure that it gets put in that way. Because that was sort of the understanding, and if we end up approving an open space or even a conventional, there's a level of understanding between the parties of what that's going to look like. Now, could he change the site plan? He could change the site plan, sure. But we have the ability to go back and change it back again. So, we're under section, I think this is a special permit application, under section 8 of our zoning regs, we have great latitude to decide what that looks like. So if we want to extend or provide a stipulation, as Commissioner Wolowski stated, providing for an access way, then we could do that. We do that along on Queen Street, for example, that any business that comes in there is required to have an access way to the adjoining business, so people don't have to get on Queen Street and try to minimize that traffic. So we have the leeway to be able to do that. To your question on the traffic counts, I mean, I understand your point, and after everybody talks, I'll have the engineer get up again and talk about the point. I think that you're right, that that's probably what happened, is they just statistically manipulated it, if you will, not manipulating in a bad way, but
Yeah,
but just took an average and just added it over the number of years, and that's how they got to the number. So, but we'll have him come up after everyone else talks, and we'll have them answer that question.
I appreciate it, because the amount of traffic that has increased coming south, north to south on West Street has also increased. And I don't know if those were taken into consideration, or just the additional 36 houses with the, with the year-over-year multiplier.
Well, and when he spoke about a 50% turning left and 50% turning right, I mean, that's a guess.
Yeah, at this point, I would imagine that turning right, that there's a number of people, including my wife, that turns right to go left, right? So that they take a longer way around.
And if you follow this commission over the last 4 years at least, right, so one of our biggest concern is taking a left-hand turn or crossing those lines of traffic to get on the other side of West Street. And that's one of the reasons why that study was initiated, was because we all had expressed concerns about the development that's going on there. We wanted to try to make sure that it was done in somewhat of a deliberative manner with information. So that doesn't put a pause button on development happening, but hopefully it puts us in a position as it starts to happen, we can do it with a little bit more information and therefore have a better idea of what the end result is gonna look like.
And thank you. And a comment, if those houses go for 900,000, I'm gonna be up here complaining that the value of my house will in turn end up increasing, as will my taxes, so.
Martin, I think Commissioner Woloski had a
I
comment.
just had one quick, in regards to the traffic issues, I think we'd all agree that there's a problem existing currently with the way that the neighborhood is set up. A subdivision is gonna go in regardless, a number of houses are gonna go in, so we're gonna do our best to figure out the best way to solve that problem. It may not be perfect, but we're taking all that into account. The site plan will come back before us. We have opportunities to tweak it. Future developments, we have the same opportunities to try and deal with these things, so.
And I appreciate that.
We hear your concerns, but we're very limited in what we can do. We can just try to make it as tolerable, so to speak, as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And from my perspective, I'm looking to solve the existing issue, potentially, bundle it with what we're doing here. So maybe collectively we come out with a, not necessarily a win-win, but as close to it as we can get without being, additionally disruptive, as I would see the 1 acre lots being.
And two, if I could talk about the traffic just slightly, is that, the way that it flows on West Street, which is a state-owned and operated and maintained roadway, we have very little say about what goes on there. And we have, as a commission, in certain developments, required that they only have a right turn or a left turn only lane, only have the State Traffic Administration overrule that, and that becomes the way that it is. There is a possibility, and it's, again, up to them, that we could require or request that a signalization be put at that intersection to ease some of the ability for people to get out of there as well as to come in there as well. So, that's a possibility too down the road, but that's not something that we get to decide ultimately.
Ideally, a flyover ramp that puts me right onto 84 in the morning.
But maybe
Perfect.
like a submerged
Yeah,
roadway.
tunnel it
Yeah.
above.
The big dig inside.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your time.
Hi, Al Benison from 21 Churchill Street. A thought occurred to me after our last meeting, and it raised a lot of concerns with me, is there's a lot of river sand in that area. Could this possibly be turned into a mining operation before anything happens out there? Because there's thousands of yards of river sand in that neighborhood.
Well, I think that if it gets approved under an open space subdivision, that designated open space can't be touched.
Okay, but I'm talking about towards West Street more, not around the open space.
I mean,
The river sand extends all the way up to the top of the hill.
What's that?
I think you mean, sir, before houses are built.
Right,
Your concern is that during the time of approval till then,
right,
the developer uses that land to mine whatever minerals are there.
right.
That's your concern.
Exactly.
If I paraphrase
Thank you.
it correctly.
That's one of my,
Okay, Let's try to get an answer to that. Jim Grappone over there, town engineer, do you have any thoughts on that question, or?
Thank you. It is possible that the applicant may be applying for an earth excavation as part of the application, so we haven't determined, and I don't think Mark has either, what the cuts and fills will be for the subdivision, but.
Okay, my concern is the aquifer in the area that all our wells are on. Any kind of heavy operation like that might cause a lot of problems for us people with the wells. And that's what my concern about the mining operation, all the grading and excavators, heavy equipment going in and out, et cetera, et cetera. Other than that, with the big open space area, the 17 acres, I could go for that. And one of you commissioners brought up the fact that the open space would attract a lot more traffic. I've worked all over this town at a lot of places right next to open spaces. There's never anybody hardly there. It's very quiet, very quiet. And another thing too, the 40-foot buffer, as long as it's enforced, because across the street, the construction company that built on the other side of Churchill, there's less than 20 feet of buffer in places there. And that was kind of disturbing, because I stare at the back of this big, huge building. Thank God the guy's a good guy that owns it. He's a real good guy. But that wasn't enforced, and it was supposed to be 40 feet. I have the site plan at my house. And that's basically it. Those are my concerns.
Okay. Any, Steve?
He spoke previously, but you requested that not happen.
No, I didn't request that it not happen. I just said that if they spoke, it's on the record, so. Commissioner Volpe.
I appreciate that you brought up this new concern for us, and Jim Grappone for bringing it to our attention as well. If we do go ahead and hypothetically this does get approval before the site plan application, would something like that be brought to our attention, such as the mining or excavation of those sites?
Yeah, it all depends on the grading plan. Mark, did you look into that at all? I don't.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Lovey again. As far as an earth excavation, we would have to come in for an earth excavation permit on anything over 10,000 yards. Our plan is not to do that. Anything we would be doing would just be grading certain lots around that, stripping topsoil and then putting it back on and grading around the houses. So we don't have any plans for earth excavation permit at all. And then the 40-foot buffer zone, the question that you had, we could put a conservation easement on that so no even future buyers could cut that area and then put signage up like we have in the past at different areas.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You all set, Christina?
I am all set,
Okay,
thank you.
Commissioner Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, I just want to touch on the mining piece again.
Well, let's try to hold up a little bit. Let's let Al finish, and then these guys will come up again, and so just make a note, Caleb, if
Yep.
you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just want to give the public the opportunity to say what they want to say. Al, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, is this buffer zone, is this gonna be something that's planted and look nice, or are they just gonna leave weeds and stuff up?
Well, I think that's up to the site plan piece of the application. We haven't seen that yet.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Al. Thanks for coming. Next?
Hi, Tammy Balch, 1230 West Street. I just wanted to submit for the record our water test for our well, if I can do that.
Sure.
And that's it, but you guys are welcome to come and sit in my driveway anytime you want. To sit in there, between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon and monitor traffic on your own. You're welcome to it. Our driveway is right next to Churchill, so for me to get out of my driveway some days and at certain times, could take me 7 minutes to sit at the bottom of my driveway, to have somebody nice enough to let me out, and in the afternoon, nice enough to let me in to keep the traffic flowing, because they don't want me in or out of my driveway. But if you want to do your own little test, you're welcome to come and sit in my driveway.
You're serving coffee, Jamie, or?
Sure. Let me know when you're coming. I'll put the pot on for you. Thank you.
So,
That's all
thank
I
you for coming out. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Michael Young. I'm at 8 Brothers Way. I'm actually who you talked to, Mark. I actually sent an email to you, Mr. Hammersley,
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask you to forward it to the rest of the commission. I didn't know if that serves as getting on the public record or not, so I just wanted to
It does,
ensure
Michael,
that it
yes.
would.
Anything that you send to me, usually I don't get it myself. Usually it goes to everybody else, so.
All right, so
We
I
make
did
sure that
send
everybody
that,
gets
and
it.
I expressed my concerns. I mean, the development is gonna happen. We all don't want it to happen, but it is going to happen. I'm more for the open space side of the equation, and what I said in my letter today to you was I think trying to keep the conservation buffer. I recommended 40 feet or more in my letter to you, but keeping a real natural buffer so that, like me with my property behind me, I have about a third of my lot is treed. I don't have any issues with lighting and noise and stuff from my neighbor necessarily. So the concern is with the folks on the Churchill side, on I think it's the north side, and keeping if they kept a buffer, whatever the site plan is, an adequate buffer that could not be taken down, and also along my property where those houses are, and along the McDonald's houses. That's what I stated in my. So, of the two, I would prefer this proposal that is before you, because I still also don't, and I did not say it in the letter, I don't think the home values are going to be degraded based on us having lot sizes that are twice the sizes of most of these properties. And it's also, if we keep an adequate buffer, it would be a separate neighborhood. So that's just, I wanted to make sure that my comments today that I sent in the email were on record, so.
So Michael, I'm looking at my email. when did you send that, today?
Yeah, I did send it to you.
I didn't get anything, so if you could just make sure to resend that again.
Okay.
And you can send it to Mary Ellen
All right.
down at the end there, and she'll make sure that it gets into the record and is distributed amongst the group
Okay,
as
I
well.
appreciate
So,
that.
all right?
All right.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Michael? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Hi, I'm Matt Miller. I live at Five Brothers Way, so I'm the guy that Mr. Lovey didn't talk to. He talked to my neighbor, Michael Young. I will be brief, and I would just say that, I mean, I'm really not for or against either option. Option 2 looks to be the better option for the neighborhood, but I do continue to have serious concerns about the safety of my family. I have a 5-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and that traffic study seemed to be very inaccurate, I would say, as far as if you lived in the neighborhood and you saw the amount of traffic now, right? And if you moved into the neighborhood to then think that you're gonna have to maybe not be safe, right, because of the extra traffic, and then literally wait 10 minutes, right, to pull onto West Street, that, to me, I don't think any of you sitting here would want to have that come to your neighborhood, right? So I hope that you exist to try to make sure that, you know, the safety of us as residents comes first and foremost, right? So I'm not against the build, but I am against the build if it's gonna mean that my family isn't safe, or that it's gonna add a lot of extra time to a neighborhood that we moved into, because it was one way in, one way out. It was a nice, quiet cul-de-sac, right? And so whatever can be done to make that least disruptive, and then I would implore this group of people for you all to really look at whatever traffic studies are done and see if they really are applicable, right? Because it didn't sound like, to me, again, living in the neighborhood, that they were all that accurate. So I would just ask, I mean, we elect you, right, to protect our safety, our property values, and I do think that you definitely have the power to make sure that if it's built, that, you know, it keeps us all safe, and it also doesn't add a lot of time to our commutes. I mean, 10 minutes to pull out your neighborhood does not seem reasonable to me, so.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks, Matt. Matt, can I ask you a question, just as sort of someone from the neighborhood, and just a thought that I had is, do you find various wildlife wandering into your yard at certain points? Do you hear stories about people? And if so, what are we looking at? Like bears, coyotes? What?
So it's really funny, Mr. Hammersley. Actually, we're friends with your sister, so your nephew's been over our house. I think he wants to marry my daughter, but anyways.
I don't know I have 4 sisters, so there's. Go ahead.
We've had a bear come into our yard, and we have a pool where we have a bull that you ride on, which is really funny. My kids got it for Father's Day, so they could laugh at me try to get on this bull. It goes in the pool. It's a flotation device, and it kind of mimics like a mechanical bull. And so that was outside our pool, and there was a bear. in our neighbor's yard, and he videoed it coming over and basically getting in a fight with the bull, and the bull definitely won.
Mr. Chair, can we have the video for the
Yeah.
record?
Yeah, actually, we have that video. But yeah, so there's turkeys, though. There's coyotes. We've seen foxes, the bears, deer. Just there's a ton of wildlife. Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Can-
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Albanese.
Yeah, I would second that. When I did a site visit, I found 3 separate bear scats. So
Okay.
just on off a path, so it's kind of interesting that there's quite a bit of wildlife being utilized on that
Yeah.
site, obviously.
Okay, thanks. Hi.
Good evening. Larry Butlin. I'm 74 Churchill Street. I'm on the south side of Churchill. And basically just wanted to talk about some of the information I thought the gentleman from the traffic engineer was talking about. I think first I wanted to clarify what I heard at least was the traffic study that they used was from 2015. It wasn't from 2021. I believe the 2021 is reference to actually their report. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I think I also heard the gentleman say that with this new road to the north that'll go on Pine, West Pine, and then the other neighborhoods to the north where there's 96 homes there, that could open up more traffic coming down through. If people want to avoid West Street, they could find their way to move down to the south, come around onto Churchill, and to avoid the extremely long line of traffic coming southbound on West Street. And then I also thought I heard him say that that approximately 50% of the people would use the spur to the north, and 50% would use Churchill. Well, I totally disagree with that because the majority of traffic would most likely want to go to the south to get to I-84 and not go off to Bristol and to the north. So I think there needs to be some, scrutiny on this traffic study. The developer hired this gentleman and the gentleman's company. So I don't know. I think the last meeting I remember hearing some discussion about an independent traffic study being conducted. Possibly, I don't know if the town would fund such a thing, but given the high degree of concern about traffic safety in and out of our street and on West Street in general, I think it's certainly worthy of consideration. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Larry. And we do have a study that was initiated 3 years ago, I think, by this commission to the town council. They approved it and it's currently underway. It's being done through the COG, through the CROG, the Capital Region Council of Governments, and also the, what's the one that covers Bristol over there?
Naugatuck Valley?
Right. It's a joint operation. They're studying the whole corridor right now. The traffic patterns and the volumes and that type of stuff. Because we wanted to get out ahead and not have West Street become like Queen Street 2.0.
When is that study going to be ready?
I don't know. I think COVID probably set it back a little bit, but it's currently underway right now. I know a consultant's been hired and they've been working on that, so.
It should be available in April of 2022. I'm looking at their timeline right now, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Just one other thing that just occurred to me, because I work from home. I was outside today with my dog, and I don't know if this was taken into account, but not just the homeowners, but all the trucks that come and go. Contractors, delivery trucks from FedEx, UPS. I saw a UPS truck go up our street. It had to be at least 50 miles per hour. And that's fairly common. So I don't know if the traffic study considers miscellaneous traffic associated with
I don't know
homes.
how you capture that honestly, Larry. I say it all the time. I live on Hobart Street right here. Traffic speed limit is 25. There's school buses that go 50 down that road. So
That's a problem. That's a problem in town.
it is, and it isn't, I guess, misery loves company maybe, but But it is a problem as you go down all those connecting roads to, you know, along Pleasant Street down to whether it's North Main or Queen Street, you run into that problem. We had a application on Landing Street, and we heard the same thing from those folks too, that, and, you know, I know people on Woodruff and people on Loper, it is a problem. You know, I mean, I don't know how you catch those one-offs in situations like that, and unfortunately or fortunately, who knows, home delivery is picked up dramatically over the last 5 years, so, you know, FedEx trucks, UPS, Amazon, you name it, contractors, they're all going down those roadways, so.
Well, the problem is the hill coming down,
Yeah.
going down Churchill.
I live at the bottom of the hill over here.
Yeah, so that's, you know, that just, and it's a nice straight runway basically for,
The speedway, yeah.
yeah, and it's, I have one other, if you can indulge me for one other minute. See, there's a couple other folks behind me, but one other minute. I'm a LEP in the state of Connecticut, licensed environmental professional. 282, that's my number for the record. I did hear Mr. Lovely or Mr. Savino talk about the site that has some, I don't know the terminology that was used, but it has some refuse, and I know there was definitely some concern, you know, it was brought up last week, I know, by some of the homeowners. It was touched upon again this evening. I believe I heard there was going to be a phase 1 done. There was going to be some material removed, but that I've been at Churchill for 23 years, and I know that there used to be a lot of material up in there because I drive by there a lot, but I could never find anything in the records about, you know, looking at the Connecticut deep records about that being an active site or establishment for the LEP lexicon. So I want to know more about, you know, what's going to be done up there, and whether or not, I know there was last week or last meeting, there was discussion about utility poles and potentially transformers, which typically means PCBs, and who knows what else might have been up there. So as far as just a phase 1, a lot of times we can just gloss over a property. And, you know, they look at it and they said, oh, it doesn't look like it's a big deal. Our company does a lot of phase 1s, and
Okay.
unless it's a large facility, it could be glossed over. So I would really like to know, you know, I don't know how that would be relayed to the public, to the residents and neighbors of Churchill. But, you know, what exactly is going to be done up there, and is there going to be any tests, soil tests, going to be conducted as well?
Okay. We'll have the applicant elaborate on those pieces of what was said when they spoke, after everyone else gets a chance to talk.
They have to come up after the public, so the public talks, then they come up to answer your question.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Larry. Have a great night.
Hello, Amy Cooper, 43 Brothers Way. I'm just going to bring one more in for safety with the increased traffic. One thing no one's really discussed yet is how narrow and how steep the beginning of Churchill is. When it's winter and there's so much snow, I don't see how you're going to fit buses in with all these extra cars coming in and out. If I see a truck coming down the hill, I wait at the bottom for it to come through, because it's not going to be wide enough for cars to come in. Now you're going to start adding more cars waiting to pull out. These trucks can't even pull into the street then. It's going to be way too narrow when there's snow on the ground, and you can't widen that road anymore, or else we're going to be high-fiving Al when we come home, because his house is already that close to the road. And you can't even go the other way, because then you're going to go into the construction company. That road's pretty much maxed out for how wide it's going to be, and I think that's something that we really need to consider. You know, it's nice out now, but it's not always like that. And I've almost been run off the road a couple times just by my neighbors trying to pull in and out of there when there's snow. So I think that's something that we really need to consider, and it's like, you know, it's a 50% car increase coming in and out of there now. And it's already not safe as it is sometimes with school buses and bigger trucks coming in, and then adding construction vehicles coming in for how many years to do the work here.
So that's one of my concerns is just, you know, safety. I think we're all very concerned about safety.
Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
It was something I noticed when I went out there was how it seemed to be more narrow at the top than it is at the bottom. And I think there's a report that speaks to that as well. Yeah.
Jerry Butland, 74 Churchill Street. So I've lived in there for 23 years, and so we're right at the bottom of that bit of hill, so if it's particularly slippery on the hill, I've actually got to go left out of my driveway and kind of take a running start to get up the hill, and then if I'm in the middle of doing that, and a truck is, you know, or the school bus coming down the other way. So again, safety. And regarding safety, I appreciate, Mr. Hammersley, that you brought up, you know, all the animals in the neighborhood, because I think another issue too is impact to their habitat, also based on, and also going back to what Al said, impact potentially to the wells, that, you know, when you have 33 plus homes, you're looking at an average of about 9 applications of pesticides a year to a suburban home. So, you know, over 3,000 pounds of pesticides a year, or 1.5 tons. And we have an established habitat in that area that includes migratory birds, okay, so they do stop off there, blue herons, because you've got the pond, the wetlands, hawks, wild turkeys, tree frogs, rabbits, coyotes, deer, bear, bobcat, fox, and that long-eared bat, which does summer roost in the trees on the property. So, you know, the pollution and the environmental impact to the wells and to the established habitat that these animals have enjoyed for the 23 years I've been there and beyond, since that hasn't been developed. And just wanted to leave you with a thought here, which is actually Mr. Lovely's own words from the Record Journal. This was from August of 2017, and it was in reference to the larger development at, Northridge? But in referencing, like further down where we are, the quote from the article is, while there are some larger properties off West Street that could be developed, Lovely said the power lines limit how many homes can fit on the parcels. He expects developments in the future to be around 12 homes per subdivision. And here we are at 30 plus, so, and everybody's issues are related to the increase on infrastructure and the safety around those homes and the number of cars associated with them. So, little food for thought.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tanya Zabrowski, and I live at 96 Brothers Way. Story time. In 2018, around Thanksgiving, my daughter was coming home from college. She got off the exit at 31, proceeded towards Curtis Street. At the light, like we've always told her, she put on the left blinker. That's about 100 yards in front of Churchill to get into her neighborhood. At Churchill, she was waiting to turn left while cars are speeding down. She looks in the rearview mirror and she sees a car coming up to her very fast. And before she could do anything, the car slammed her. It pushed her car 360 degrees to the other lane in the corner of Churchill and West Street, facing the opposite direction. This is a Toyota Camry. By the grace of God, there was nobody coming at that moment when she got hit, that the car was able to go to the other side and she was not hit. So I can speak to you today that I'm not planning a funeral other than talking about the safety of that area. My daughter had minor injuries that day, but to this day, she has anxiety and she's scared to go on there, like many of us do, just going basically home every day. She panics and she fears, but she's fine. Life goes on. If you're going to connect the streets, that won't take away the traffic, as someone had mentioned before. All that excessive speeding will go into our neighborhoods. They will find their way through. And that's a concern for people that have kids that are walking down the street, walking with them during those high traffic times, walking your pets, potentially hitting the residents that live there. I would think that there'd be another option. As someone had mentioned before, you can't maybe take away the changes of West Street because I understand that's a state road. Maybe putting more lights in there because I don't know how much we can control the traffic of the speeding. But I don't know if any of you are going to be coming to somebody's funeral if somebody gets hit in our neighborhood or anywhere in that area. There's plenty of accidents. My daughter just made it lucky that day from not somebody coming down the opposite way. So I just want to emphasize that there needs to be a comparable solution. I like the buffer idea. We understand that there's houses that are coming, but we need to have the safety of current children, families that come in, future children that are driving around in their bikes that will drive cars. I live in not the non-traffic area, but I've got kids that are going to get their license that will come in that area, so you're adding more cars. It's a recipe for disaster unless we take this seriously. And we're here seriously because it's a potential disaster to make things worse. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. I'm glad that things didn't turn out more tragically there, but we have had a number of accidents up there, as you probably know, that are more serious. And you know,
Certainly, yes.
as I said, we've tried to do our best as a group to address any future problems that may be caused up there. It's just things take time a little bit, I think, and so. But I hear what you're saying. I appreciate you coming out tonight.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Patterson. I spoke at the last meeting, and I won't repeat any of it, I promise. But since that meeting, I won't say I've become an expert, but I certainly have.
John, could you give us your address just so we have
Yeah,
it?
I'm
for the
sorry,
record?
150 Churchill Street.
Okay, thank you.
It's with one T, P-A-T-E-R-S-O-N. I certainly haven't become an expert, but I have spent some time in the policies and the provisions of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and in particular, the open space, preservation, subdivision, and just the overall zoning regulations. And I find that a lot of the clauses that are in the documentation, at least from my perspective, are somewhat subjective and a little bit vague. I find the term substantial is used in a lot of the clauses, which is kind of interesting. And you may have picked up on it a little bit tonight. Our neighborhood is starting to divide, unfortunately. Regardless of which proposal goes through, there's going to be people that are upset about it from one side or the other, whether Churchill Street gets opened up or whether the egress is directly across from my house and Matt Miller's house. It's, you know, it's unfortunate, but I guess it is what it is. But I wanted to reference a couple of the provisions in the documents. As I mentioned, substantially accomplished seems to be kind of the term that we hear a little bit. And under section 3-07.3, and this is in the open space portion of the document where it talks about review standards under procedure. And one of the statements that's made is, as it relates to the commission doing their review, and that the development will not adversely affect existing or potential development of neighborhood or neighboring properties. So I find that an interesting statement. And at some point, regardless of which way this goes, I think we would like to hear, you know, how you folks felt about that adversely affecting, because I agree with Mo. If I can get 900 grand for my house on a full acre, and Mr. Lovely can get 900 grand on a half an acre, I'm going to be doing loop-de-loops, and I may not come back to any of these meetings again. I also, on 3-0704, where it talks about standards and conditions, and that the Open space preservation subdivision shall conform to the following minimum standards unless otherwise noted. And at the last meeting, Mr. Hamley, you made a comment, and it caused me to go back in and look at the documents, and there's three statements in the document, and you commented here specific to Section B, which is area of subdivision, and you said to Mr. Seb, something to the nature of that he must be hanging his hat on number 1 because numbers 2 and 3 don't seem to conform. In the paragraph, you folks are probably familiar with it, but so that the audience knows what I'm talking about. Area of subdivision. While there is no minimum lot size for open space preservation subdivision, the land must be in a single tract or a number of contiguous tracts under one ownership or consolidated into a single tract by a number of different owners by means of a binding agreement which will assure the uniform treatment of an overall open space preservation subdivision development for the entire tract from the time of application and continuing thereforth, except that the acreage may be less than specified for each respective zone if one or more of the following criteria are met. And number 1 that you referred to was, in the opinion of the commission, the purposes set forth in section 3-07.2 can better be served than by a conventional subdivision. So at some point, if we do go this route, again, we would like clarification on what this commission felt better served meant, because Mr. Seb actually did admit that numbers 2 and 3 don't apply because the application covers land adjoining and which can be integrated with another open space preservation subdivision that has been approved under this section, or the open space proposed is contiguous to existing open space land outside the area covered by the application and is suitable for the open space purposes specified in section 6. And he did admit that the field in whatever Fish and Game is not contiguous. So it is there, and I don't know how far away it is. So again, at some point, I think the commission would be good to kind of tell us really what they would be thinking if they make a decision that the proposal meets all those requirements. And then my last comment talks about open space, where it talks about the open space preservation subdivision development shall result in reservation of undeveloped land with suitable access. The commission shall have the right to determine the location, dimensions, and numbers of rights-of-way to set open space for pedestrian and or vehicle access. And I'm not going to go into all the traffic stuff, you've heard it all, but based on that statement, it would appear that you folks have the ability to let Mr. Lovely know whether either of these two proposals will work based on what you're hearing from this group and the traffic studies that you do the work on. Listen, I think everyone understands that he's got a right if he purchases the property to build. We understand that, but that doesn't mean that he has to completely disrupt another neighborhood, use a West Street exit. So, thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. You know, I want to talk about the piece that you brought up about the subdivision. So one of the things that occurred between we last met and tonight is that I asked our town staff to provide me with a map of the current open space properties that we have in town to specifically see if there was something contiguous or adjacent to where this proposed development is. There's a small sliver. There's a little piece of land that sits between this piece of property and where this sliver is. But there is something there. And, you know, one of the reasons why I'm asking about wildlife tonight is because one of my concerns is making sure that we maintain the wildlife corridors in our town and build upon them as best as we can. So when I look at this plan, you know, one of the things that I see as a positive is that it may provide some access along that corridor on the, if I'm looking at it correctly, on the west side of the development, because if you look at that, let's take it out, huh? If you look at that piece up in the upper right-hand corner there, yeah, go up. Yeah, right there is actually open space that's reserved by the town. right here, right in this area. So there's a tract of land right up here. Like I said, it's a small sliver that's a rectangular in shape. That is a reserved open space. So again, I'm just wondering if there's a possibility to try to eventually join these properties together to give wildlife an opportunity to walk along there, because, you know, as we keep developing along our town, one of the bad things that seems to be happening is that wildlife is looking for a place to roam. And, you know, too often it's not their fault. They end up in the backyards of residents, and, you know, that's a safety concern as well. So, but I appreciate you bringing that up again, and we'll certainly have the applicant speak to that when they come up.
Thank you.
All right? Thanks for coming out.
Good evening, Commissioners. Craig Zoll, 350 Churchill. I spoke last time. I just want to give some specificity to some of the things that were said tonight. So at the intersection of Churchill and West Street, in the last 6 years, there's been over 200 accidents in that half mile on either side going north or south. Of the 200 accidents that have happened, 34 of them have been attributed to the Churchill West Street intersection. Of the 34, 9 are specifically attributed to Churchill number 2 or the hashtag number 2. You have to look at both sets of data. I conversed with Yukon crash data to pull out those numbers. I sent a presentation to everybody on this board earlier tonight. It was listed on the website. You're welcome to peruse it. It has all of that data footnoted. It also has data from every one of those 34 accidents listed in the back, and the 9 accidents and all the data associated with it. In addition to that, of the 200 accidents that happened a half mile up or down, north or south on 229, there have been 600 accidents on the 229 corridor between 84 and Route 6. So a third of those accidents have happened within a mile of Churchill. That's the first thing. The second thing is, while I agree this would be the better option for me also, I live down on the middle part of Churchill, across the street from Mario, that if you look, I get my own laser pointer. If you look here, this slope here, and it cuts through this property, goes from 230 feet to 270 feet in roughly 170 feet of land. That's pretty steep to put a house on. Mark, you're going to lose some houses there, but you're also going to lose some houses here and houses here, because those are where there are easements for Eversource. They take a pretty good chunk of both of those corner lot properties there. In addition to that, this commission, not these people, but the Zoning and Planning Commission, in 2012 brought an action against the homeowners who owned 1268 Churchill Street for debris which was in this area here, where the lawyer said, we will remove all of the telephone poles and debris from the property. And the zoning commission said, okay, we'll give you a pass, but you must remove all of that material. That material is still there today. One last thing that I'd like to bring up for one last specificity is this wetlands area that you see here goes all the way up into West Pines area and all the way down to the 8 Mile River. It also feeds Florian Pond with some tributaries. There is an easement down here on one of the properties by the town for water retention, water runoff, flood control, and some other things that may be impacted by this subdivision that should be taken into account during these actions. Last thing is Ingress. So there is a road here, right at the top here. It's a service road. As I understand it, when you did your walkthrough, you walked down that service road. That service road already has a entranceway and exit onto West Street. So if Mark is going to develop the property, he could develop using that service road, if he's going to use this area up here for phase 3, as an ingress point into the neighborhood, and not even have to touch the Churchill neighborhood at all by using this service road. He could also use this service road for construction equipment coming up and down the road. Any questions?
Any questions for Craig?
I have a comment.
Commissioner Volpe?
I would like to say that this is some of the most impressive data collection that we've received as a body up here.
Thank you.
I say that not even to be facetious. It's quite compelling. It's a wonderful data. It shows that you're a concerned citizen, and I really appreciate it because I don't know everything. You've elected me to hear you out, but these are the things I'd like to hear. You know, this data, as it's presented, is helpful, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have one more data point for you.
Yes,
so
Queen.
the Naugatuck Valley and Central Connecticut COGS are both doing studies on 229. They've both identified the intersection of Churchill and West Street as a high incident and accident zone. And there are suggestions on how to do remediation of it. However, those remediations, as you stated, won't be available until April of 2022. Their preliminary report will be available at the end of September 2021, however.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
No,
You all
nothing
set, Christina? Anyone else? Thanks, Craig, for coming out
My
tonight.
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak in opposition to this application?
Richard Cooper, 79 Barbara Lane. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I've lived in this town for over 20 years. If you know where Barbara Lane is, it's behind JFK. Had a situation over the last decade that was very similar to yours. I just want to say that I've seen what I have nothing against your company, Mr. Lovely. I don't know you. I know nothing about you, but this town has to decide if it wants to remain a town or if it wants to be a city. I hear all around from people, especially people that have, lived most of their life here, they want this overcrowding to stop. You guys are shoving houses in wherever you can fit them. They're cookie cutter houses. You are destroying wildlife everywhere. I used to have bobcats, deer, fox, skunks, you name it. So, Mr. Lovely, I have nothing against you, but stop destroying the town.
Thanks, Mr. Cooper. Anyone else like to speak on this application at this time? Mark, Zev, we have some questions. We could start with the traffic counts and just talk about where the actual counts were taken from, and then what you did to achieve the counts that you presented in your report.
Yeah, I apologize. I understand the nature of my presentation can be a little confusing when I'm just throwing numbers at you. So I will go over it. The report we submitted was submitted August 25th, 2021. The numbers that we have based our background traffic volumes off of are based off of a traffic volume count conducted by the Connecticut Department of Transportation during 2015. The reason for this is the 2015 count reflects the highest traffic volumes at that station from 2020 to 2009. We do have traffic volumes from 2020, but even the Condat traffic volumes clearly state these volumes were taken during or counted during a pandemic. So they do not like us by practice using traffic volumes that were conducted during a pandemic because typically they reflect lower traffic volumes. So we chose the 2015 traffic volumes because they show the worst case scenario. Those are the highest traffic volumes, and that information is available to the public. If you search Condat traffic volumes, they're very simple to find. But we do always analyze the worst case scenario. So we chose the 2015 traffic volumes, analyzed data back to 2009, which found an increase of traffic per year of about 0.8%. We upped it to 1% per year, and our background traffic volumes are based on the 2015 traffic volumes, increase 1% per year to the 2022 design year, if that. And as far as the directional distribution, those are found as well using the Condat counts. And basically, analyzing in which direction traffic goes based off of their counts. It is, as you said, a rough estimate because their counts are conducted at certain stations. So information is only what we have available to us. But 50-50 was our best educated guess at what the distribution is. I hope that does clear things up.
Okay.
But we do always analyze worst case scenario as far as traffic volume goes, and that is available to the public.
Okay. You know, Ronald Reagan used to say trust but verify, so I'm going to use our third-party peer reviewer sitting in the back there, Jim Grappone, PE, to just answer a question about whether, in his opinion, that's standard practice in the business to do what was done in the case of this traffic study.
I agree with what the engineer stated from a pandemic standpoint, and they used the 2015 and interpolated it 1% per year. So it'd be interesting to get the existing data from the CROG study and just see how that compares with the existing.
Okay, thanks, Jim. The other questions I have is, one is on environmental concern, utility bowls and PCBs, and then an overall questions on a couple sections of our regulations that were brought up by me last time that I just wanted you to clarify what your position on those are. So why don't you start with the environmental concerns?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Mark Lovey again. On the environmental concerns, I've only been involved with this property since March when I walked the property with the seller's attorney to view the property. Only thing that I found out there was piles of telephone poles that they used for a fence at that time. I didn't see any evidence of any transformers or anything out there. They did have 2 old trucks that were parked there that they actually removed from the property, and they did clean up the front part of the property, which is 1268, where we're sure not purchasing right now. But I brought in, I actually did talk to Jeff Quirk about the best way to get rid of those telephone poles, and he said use a remediation company that would be getting rid of them with the correct paperwork and everything like that.
Okay.
And that's what we have done. I've had them up on the site. They walked the site. They have a facility to take it to, and then, like I say, we will do a phase 1. I have to do a phase 1 not only for myself, but for you guys when we actually turn a road over. And the other thing is, for me to get financing from a bank, I have to have a clean site. So if there's an issue with it after we do the phase 1, we have to go to a phase 2. We'll definitely do it because there would be some different negotiation with the seller on that aspect if there was a environmental problem. But we always look at protecting ourselves, so that's why we do a phase 1, and we would end up going into a phase 2 if needed.
Okay, and just on the utility piece, the service road out there, that's not part of this property, correct? That's owned or maintained by somebody else?
It is. That's the Bagnell piece of property. And to get some of the telephone poles out, I did ask him if we could take some from there, and I talked to Frank about that, and he said he would be open to that.
So the reason I'm asking, Mark, is because somebody suggested that maybe you use that as a means of egress in and out of this development or this area if you were to develop it. That's not really an option at this point because you don't own it.
It's not an option because we don't own it right now.
Right,
Exactly.
okay. And then there was another question that was brought up by Mr. Patterson about the open space contiguous under 3-07.4B. Again, I brought this up at the last meeting, and Sev, I think, tried to answer it, maybe thought about it a little bit. He seemed a little bit more prepared tonight relative to it because you mentioned the game club property back there. You know, as I said, there is a piece up in the north west corner there that is a small sliver that's preserved open space.
That is.
But why don't you talk to those requirements, the
Yes,
3
definitely.
requirements there?
Yeah, the 17 acres that we have, and actually part of the other, with this open space subdivision, will be contiguous to that north parcel up there that will go into that, which will go into the Fish and Game Club, which goes into other open space from subdivisions out behind that that's contiguous to the Forestville Fish and Game. Now, if we were to do a standard subdivision here without this type of open space, there would be no contiguous to that parcel. That would be blocked off by 4 lots that would be over in that area.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
One other thing, I think Commissioner Coles had a question on the earth excavation. There was a request or an application from Tilcon back about in the late 80s to be able to do a earth excavation permit on this property, which the Planning and Zoning Commission of Sullyton denied that application. Our plans are not to come in for any earth excavation on this property to remove fill from the property.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, I can? Yeah?
The other thing, I think there was a question last time too that we forgot to mention. Sev did check the endangered species database at the state, and there is no endangered species on the property itself.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant from members of the commission? Commissioner Volpe?
I actually had a question about the traffic study report. We were like running along there.
No problem.
My question is that, like, did we take accidents into account in the report that you presented to us for this evening? Or maybe that's not typical. Again, I'm just wondering because I also feel compelled. I have a family member who was driving a flatbed who also got hit near this area about 3 years ago. It flipped, he was trapped. It's a very traumatic story, and I feel your pain. So I'm concerned about that as well. I would love to see some sort of accident analysis, and I don't know if I saw that in this report. So if you could review that for us, or talk to me about it, just so I feel better. Thank you, Mark. So sorry.
No problem.
One for Mark.
Hold on 1 second.
Actually, myself owning the property down on West Street, I've had to have somebody from the DOT from when we did that looking at those traffic lights down there, because one of the problems is those traffic lights are not in sync from Curtis
They're
Street
not.
to where the commercial development is. So that's what's backing that up. So unfortunately, he retired, so I'm working on trying to get to somebody else at the state, because that is one of the biggest problems in that area for that traffic backing up on West
And
Street like it
if I
does.
remember correctly, there's 2 traffic lights that sit at the end of Curtis and at the end of, there's another road there, but they're
The
very
my
close to-
development that I did with the medical office.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're about a half mile away from the Churchill entrance on West Street, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically the one over near Dunkin' Donuts in there. Those aren't timed properly. The state needs to adjust those to time those
Get
differently.
a yellow, you're trying to blow it.
Yeah.
But we don't blow it through yellow.
Yeah, though
Not me
it's a-
personally, on the public record.
That's one of the biggest problems with that West Street corridor is that backing up, and we've asked, because I have the buildings down there, to try and do something, because it's just, it's crazy how fast the light, some of the other ones change and the other ones don't. That's the problem.
Okay. Commissioner Santiago?
So, Mark, there's just one thing that I wanted to ask, because it's been, I don't understand why you would do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you know, if you came here for the straight subdivision thing, and we're within regulation, we're duty bound to say yes to that, as you know.
Yes,
Per
you
our
are.
regulations, which
Yes.
people don't really understand. If somebody comes in, owns a piece of property, it's zoned residential, they come in regulation-wise, we have very little say-so, we must obligation say yes. If we don't, you could sue the town and you could sue us personally,
Yes.
right?
Fortunately, we could.
Right? And so you're giving us, though, the option of a special permit. And then with a special permit, we have more leeway, as you said, Mr. Chair, to change some things. We have more leeway to go
Mhm.
back and forth on that.
Yes.
And normally when we have those choices, you get open space and there's a lot more houses.
Mm-hmm.
And we really have to weigh the trade-off.
Yes.
Here, the houses are basically a wash. It's not like it's 33 and 60 as we normally are faced.
100% correct.
You know, that sort of thing. And we get open space, and then we got to talk about density, and we have all those discussions, regardless of what it is.
Yes.
This isn't that. So you're getting the same number of houses, and we get a lot more open space. So I guess my question to you is, why go through all this? Why even offer it?
You know, it's funny because when I bought this property, I told the seller's agent that I wasn't going to come in for an open space subdivision because then I didn't have to come to a public hearing. We didn't have to go through all this.
That's right.
But I felt, the last 5 developments I've done in town, and a lot of people don't know this, we've saved over 200 acres of open space doing it with this type of application.
Right.
And that's basically the reason for doing this, is to try and save more open space for a habitat.
Right, because really the options that we have, as you know,
Mhm.
for open spaces, somebody buys it and doesn't develop it.
Yep.
The town uses taxpayer money to buy it and doesn't develop it.
Yep.
Or with our regulation that this body over time has developed either an open space subdivision or those arch cluster
Exactly.
housing things or
Yep.
other that within the confines of a development, the town gets and open space is kind of a broad term. It gets undeveloped land.
Yes.
Because I think we use open space kind of freely, and there's different definitions of it, but it's undevelopable land.
Exactly.
That's what you have.
Yep.
So why?
I guess I glut for punishment.
Like, you didn't have to go through this.
No, I didn't have to.
Like, you could have said subdivision, there's no public hearing, nobody has to question your integrity or anything else.
Yep.
And we're duty bound to say yes to that.
Yep.
Assuming you're within regulation.
Exactly. Yep. But I did it just to save the extra open space. I felt that 17 acres instead of 3.75 was a better for the town.
Okay.
Just like the other subdivisions, I've did the same thing I've done in the last 5, which, like I say, saved 200 acres of open
Yeah,
space
right.
instead of which probably would have been somewhere around less than 30.
Right.
So.
Okay.
You all set, Peter?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Volpe for a second time.
Yep, for a second time. I just, I love all that, and I love that there's open space that you have preserved with your developments, but it has been mentioned tonight that there's an easement from Eversource on this property, which makes it difficult as well. So it's to your benefit to provide this open space within this subdivision. Is that correct, or?
Not really, because if you look, our property line ends, there's only a couple lots up on the upper north side that abuts up against the easement. We're not even really into the easement other than about 3 or 4 lots on this plan. That easement is north of our property.
Okay.
We're actually planning on keeping all those trees in the back of those homes too, so it doesn't open up that corridor through there.
I just think, like, while I appreciate it, I think that to just say that it's purely out of the kindness of your heart when there is some strategy to it, we should also mention that as well. There is a strategy here to fit as many homes or less homes as possible. I want that in consideration of everyone here, because it's not simply getting open space that can be walked through. It's really just going to be for the habitat factor. Is that correct?
Well, no, when you walk up on the northern upper or north or west of the open space or the wetlands over in that area, that land is gorgeous through there. There are paths there that can be walked with the neighbors and stuff like that and get out to the power lines. So it actually, I don't know if you walked it or not, but it is gorgeous through there, and just not to develop that and keep that natural, I think, is a benefit.
I have, because there's a historic path that goes to the little schoolhouse back there, that who knows how old that is, but I guess I appreciate you just answering me in that way,
Yeah,
because
no problem.
those things matter. I want to hear that if we're getting this land, that not me, but maybe my daughter or her daughter eventually, like, it'll be there. It's land that is not just there because it favored the development the way that it's
Exactly.
set up.
Yes.
I want to hear that we can use it, or that it's positive in those senses. So elaborating on that, thank you.
Yeah, what's nice about this is you have 17 acres of open space, of which 4 is only wetlands, which is nice about that. So we're getting a lot of uplands on this one, where a lot of times you don't get that.
That's it from me, Mr. Chair, for the second time.
Thank you,
You're
Commissioner Volpe. Commissioner Albanese.
Yeah, let's take what Christina, Miss Volpe said, Commissioner Volpe, and turn it into a different situation. If you went with the conventional design, what kind of impacts would we have had for the wetlands and for the upland forests and the upland areas in that portion of the property? And you would have extended the road continuously through and then put in another access road to build homes back there, correct?
Exactly, 100% right. The road, Churchill would extend through to the west, all the way through the other Churchill, and then that upper westerly portion would be 4 single-family lots instead of open space.
Right, with potential wetland impacts.
Exactly, we would be going in for wetlands for a buffer
we're
zone.
looking at a design that is avoiding wetland impacts at this point. We don't know, because you haven't come before us or the Conservation Commission or the PZ for the actual site plan, subdivision application. And we're preserving uplands and wetlands.
100%
So,
correct.
okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to give a different perspective, that we're looking at this, there's 17 acres, a big chunk of open space, and yet we're preserving a good amount of this property, but yet if it went to the conventional, there might have been more impacts to the natural habitat and more impacts to, habitat for wildlife, and more impacts to the wetlands as well. So it's kind of a win-win, I think. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Albanese. Any other questions from members of the commission? Seeing none, have all staff questions been responded to? I get a nodding in the affirmative from both Mr. Grappone and Ms. Edwards. So is there any reason to keep this public hearing open at this time?
Mr. Chair, I do
Commissioner
question.
Volpe, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. But we have talked about Krog a lot, or Naugatuck Valley Krog, in the September 29th meeting. I may ask that we wait until some of that information at the September 29th meeting is made available so that we can just see more of the impact that is had on the 229 corridor as a whole in our town, that southern portion of the corridor. That would be my only ask, but I'm open to hearing the opinions of my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Anyone want to respond?
I guess I appreciate
Commissioner
that,
Santago,
and it's
go ahead.
fair. I don't know if it would change the outcome, simply because it's a subdivision reg. And with a subdivision reg, I hate to say it, but on a straight subdivision reg, that has some impact, but it really, I hate to say it, kind of doesn't. In regards to, I think it would have to do, if we would talk site plan maybe, on the question, which we're gonna talk anyways in another public hearing.
Yeah.
So at that time, we usually have a couple bites at the apple at site plan anyway.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we will at this one. But in regards to the question that we have this evening, do we want conventional or open space? I don't know necessarily if that question is pertinent to this decision. I think.
Let me add to what Commissioner Santago said, and Commissioner Volpe, is that, you know, when we were presented with the numbers and we asked for an explanation, and we were provided with that explanation, my question to Mr. Grappone was to sort of address that, right?
Yeah.
That if the industry accepted practice is to add a certain percentage, and they actually went above that certain percentage, rounding it up to 1% for every year amortized over since 2015 or 16, then I think that the outcome of the West Street corridor study, which will only be a draft form, we don't know what it's gonna say, and to delay I'm not sure that we're gonna find much more information that's gonna be off what we were presented with already.
I don't disagree. That's why I'm interested in hearing your opinions, because either way, as you said, we'll get to see that when we do discuss the site plan.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted your opinion on how, because I know what that's looking at. It's looking at walkability, pedestrian access, biking. There's a lot more factors than what we're just looking at tonight. So my historian mind, right, wants to see and analyze all of those different factors into rationalizing what this will look like eventually from a livability perspective.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't disagree, so thank you for taking that moment.
Anytime, Christina, always happy to discourse.
Just chat it out, we gotta chat some things out, Thank you.
Any other commissioner have any thoughts on closing the public hearing at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on that. Moving on to item 7C, Carol and Gilman Albert, petition to change the zone district boundary from I-1 to R-2025, property located at 144 Pine Street. This is zone change 572. Is the applicant here?
Oh, somebody just got to hit the
Chair?
computer.
I'm back.
Commissioner Gork, oh, I'm
Been a
sorry,
while, but
yes,
I'm back.
I was being quiet.
Thank you, Jeff. So Commissioner Gork has moved back into his seat.
closed
Thank
it,
you
so
for your
it's a
service, Teresa.
problem.
I'm sure you'll be called upon sometime in the near
Yes, it
future to
is.
do that again. So Mrs. Albert or Mrs. Albert?
Albert.
Albert?
Yeah, Carol Albert. I live at 631 West Center Street, but my husband and I own 144 Pine Street. And we'd like it to be rezoned to a residential area because we believe it's the highest and best use
Excuse
for
me,
that property.
sir?
Oh dear,
Thanks, Steve.
oh dear.
Go ahead,
We
Carol.
believe
Sorry.
it's the highest and best use for that property. The pool of interested buyers, right now we have it up for sale, is so much larger when it's a residential property, so.
So
That's
Mrs. Albert, one of the things that struck me when I went out there and looked at it was that it's very small.
Yeah.
It's a little over, I think the map read .69 acres.
It's
So-
.69.
Yeah, so a little bit over a half acre. There's one house that's sitting on there right now, chain link fenced across the driveway, the whole thing. It looked like, I saw some people that looked like they were out there to cut trees or maybe taking a lunch break, I don't know. I'm just curious, what is the intent here? I mean, why are we changing this? Why should we change it? What are you looking to put there?
Oh, we're not looking to put anything else there. We'd probably apply for a demo permit at some time, take that house down because it's really not in good shape. And then if somebody wants to buy it and put up a house, you know, it's more liable that they would do
Okay.
that than if it's a commercial property.
And Mary Ellen or Jim, is this a non-conforming use right now? Is that what that residence is? So it's grandfathered in under that? So at one point, it was a residentially zoned, and then it got changed over to an I zone for some reason. I
We
see
don't
Mr.
know why.
Perillo was in the audience earlier. Maybe he can shed some light on that change, but Lou Perillo is in the back row. He's our economic development guy, so. But, okay. Anything else to add? Any other questions from members of the commission of Mrs. Albert?
I think Mr. Chair, I think the surrounding neighborhood's residential, is it not?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
So this
At
is
least,
just-
at least on 3 sides.
Yeah. That's what I thought, so this is because usually you don't like losing industrial. It's like a thing, like you don't lose industrial, at least certain big plots of it. But this seems like it's just a dot in the middle of residential, and I don't know how big you're gonna get on there. I mean, normally, I'm welcome to have more understanding of that, but it's, like you say, it's like half acre land there.
I think Lou might be able to shed some light on that at some point,
So,
but,
I don't know what
before
what the
we
deal
give the
is.
floor to him, let's finish up with Mrs. Albert and see if there's any other questions for her. I don't see any, Mrs. Albert, thank you, and stick around. Someone might raise a question in the next couple of minutes, so.
Thank you.
She trying to change.
Do we have anybody here who's here to testify in favor of this application? Come on up. Okay, again, just name, rank, serial number, firstborn's name, you know.
Hi, my name's Steve Powell. That property is in my backyard. I'm connected to it. It is a residential area, except right next to them. My only concern would be that it was just a single residence that went in there, and it wasn't, a duplex, which doesn't really fit in the neighborhood. So if it was a single family type thing, I would support it.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Warwick has a question.
Just a quick
for you.
question. Your backyard, I'm looking at the GIS now. The other side is, what's on that property on the north of the house that abuts your backyard? It's industrial zoned as well, but is there commercial back there, or is it residential?
They have a small cabinet shop. It's a one-man operation, makes cabinets. I don't even know that they're there. It's quiet all the time. They keep the door shut and.
How do they get in and out of, where's the,
So the entrance is just past their property. When you go by the driveway for their residence, straight through, there's a gate, and that
Okay.
enters the property back there.
Alright.
Both of those are behind my house.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned, because then you're just blocking off, I think maybe the small parcel was made I-1, so it made it contiguous, so you could access industrial to industrial, so I was just nervous that if there's not a way to get into the back industrial property, they're just isolating the industrial, so.
Yeah, they have their own entrance, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions for Steve? Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Anyone else here to testify in favor of this application? Seeing none, anyone to testify in opposition to the application? Lou Perillo, do you have any light you can shed on this property, with the history of it, how it, and why it's
How to get
a
there?
house in an industrial zone at all, or?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, Lou Perillo, Southington Economic Development Coordinator or Director. I'm sorry I'm not prepared to speak on this particular parcel, but as Commissioner Santiago said, we really don't normally like to get rid of industrial. This might be an exception. However, I would caution the commission that once you change it to residential, any residential could go in there. It's very difficult to stipulate that it can't be affordable housing. The other thing I would caution you is if someone does tear it down, puts up a nice single-family residence, and something happens with the adjacent industrial parcel, you're gonna have people coming up saying, I'm against this use, which is in a conforming area currently. So we've had issues with that in the past as well, but I'll be glad to take a look at it. And like I said, I'm not against it per se at all.
Okay.
I just don't have enough
Okay.
knowledge on this particular aspect.
Okay.
Those are my 2 cautionary items
Okay.
for you this evening.
Thanks, Lou. I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I just thought I'd I'd put your brain power to use here,
We
so.
appreciate Lou.
Any other questions for members of the commission? I think in light of Lou's commitment to look at the property a little bit historically, maybe if you could just give us a memo even, Lou, I don't want you to have to come up here again in 2 weeks, but if we just keep this open just to get that piece of information, does anyone object to that?
I would agree, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we'll keep that public hearing open. Ms. Albert, what we're doing is we're just trying to get a historical context of that piece of property. And we're back again in 2 weeks, so, we'll have a presentation at that time. I can't close the public hearing because then that can't become part of the record. So, and moving on to item 7D, Matotega 9-lot subdivision application, property located 181 West Queen Street, property owned by Southington Land Associates in an I1 zone. This is S1328. I believe we're still waiting for staff to review responses that were provided recently. And I believe that there's a request to table this item until our next meeting. Is that true, Sev? Okay. So is there any objection to tabling this item? No?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to the business meeting. Item 8A, Chris Kazanelsis, or something like that, care of EBI Consulting, I apologize. Site plan application to construct a 7-Eleven convenience store building with gas station pumps and canopy. Underground fuel storage tank are proposed to facilitate the gasoline sales operation on site. The existing pharmacy building will be demolished to make room for the proposed development. Property located at 500 Queen Street, owned by RAP Properties LLC in a B zone. Special permit application number 1825. This was tabled from our last meeting on August 17th. And before the applicant starts, I want to extend again my gratitude for your willingness to forego your presentation at our last meeting, which was running rather late. And the floor is yours, gentlemen. So, and lady, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I use the laptop to?
Oh, absolutely.
You can. If you could just give us your name and your affiliation to the application, that would be great. So start with that.
My name is Mark Grocke, project manager with VHB. Our offices are located at 100 Great Meadow Road, Weathersfield, Connecticut. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to load up our PDF here.
Hey, Mark, not to brag, but Southington's better than Weathersfield. Why don't you locate your business here? Lou will hit you on the way out. I set it up for you, Lou, so.
I'm not sure I get paid enough for those
You have no
decisions.
shame. Yeah, there you go.
No offense to my people from Weathersfield.
Yeah,
but
nice. We'll start at
my
2.
daughter's one of them, by the way, so. Hard knock life? What do we gotta do?
Could you get the lights? Would it be,
Right, over your right shoulder there.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, either is,
Oh.
well,
Oh.
leave the back ones on.
Maybe just one of
Leave the
them
back
on,
ones
please.
on.
Yeah, the front light usually.
There you
There
go.
we go.
There you go.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening again. My name is Mark Grocke, project manager with VHB. Here on behalf of 7-Eleven and their development team. I have with me Dorothy Fleischman from 7-Eleven and Jason Adams, our traffic expert from McMahon Associates. We're here to seek site plan approval for the proposed 7-Eleven development at 500 Queen Street. We are also seeking for the record seeking a waiver of zoning regulation 9-03, specifically for section 9-03.17. It has to do with level of service for traffic analysis, and we'll get into that just a little bit later. And for the record, this is also for a Connecticut General Statute 14-321 for site location approval, which puts the onus of the location approval onto the local municipality. So I just wanted to note that for record. So to go through the site briefly, see if I can zoom in here a little bit. Again, 500 Queen Street's the former Rite Aid facility. I-84 is located to the north on page right. There is an existing traffic signal with our driveway directly on the east. We're fronting along Queen Street, Route 10 under DOT jurisdiction. There is an AT&T cell phone tower to the rear of the site. Obviously, there's parking and traffic circulation all the way around the existing building. There's an existing driveway connection to the liquor store to the south of our site. The zone is entirely surrounded by B2 business zone. So for our proposed conditions, the Rite Aid pharmacy, or rather Walgreens pharmacy, is going to be completely demolished. Zoom in here a little bit for you. We're going to make way for a new 4,700 square foot convenience store, 7-Eleven building right here in the center of the site. There's going to be proposed 10 pump positions, 2 dispensers per pump, so a total of 20 dispensers. Underground fuel tanks located in front here as well. We're going to maintain the existing curb cut to Queen Street with the existing signal in the front. The driveway along the northern property line will be maintained. The existing dumpster configuration in the far rear of the site will be maintained. There's parking entirely around the perimeter of the site. The access to the south adjacent liquor store development will be maintained under proposed conditions. A couple of housekeeping things I forgot to mention previously is we did receive approval for inland wetlands under the administrative approval. There's a stream located just off our property to the north here, and we are proposing development within 50 feet of that, so we did go through the inland wetland agent and received administrative approval for that. The zoning regulations require a special exception for gasoline fueling stations. Back in July, we had received the special exception from ZBA, so that component is also satisfied, so we're here again for the site plan approval as the last component for the local permitting process. So back to the proposed site plan. Again, the driveway to Queen Street will be maintained. The site is adequately parked. There's 46 proposed parking spaces. We did receive some comments from engineering. I talked to the town engineer this morning. We received comments from the planning department. One thing I wanted to specifically mention is that the planning department had identified that the site may have appeared a little bit overparked. This site was a little bit interesting because we're proposing 46 spaces. The zoning regulations don't exactly define if you should park out a multi-use building. So we went a little bit conservative perhaps and associated this with all retail development. In retail, if this were assigned all retail, it would require 15 spaces for code. If it was all gas station use, it would have been 94 spaces, and I think 94 is a little excessive to be considered. So we submitted an application, assuming this was all retail. We had some discussions with the planning department. They had questioned, well, it doesn't seem appropriate. So we went back, we worked with the planning department, and there was one specific comment that they had in their comments that addressed, well, what are we going to do with the overpark? So we took a second look at the zoning regulations, and the proposed use for the 7-Eleven, yes, it's convenience store retail use, but it also has a restaurant component to it. There's a new program, sister program, that they're rolling out called Raise the Roost Chicken and Biscuits, so they do have a restaurant component. There are seating inside the building. They also serve pizzas and other obvious fast food convenience store items such as coffees, etc. So you can also consider this a restaurant type of use. And a third, obviously it has a gas station, gasoline filling station component. So we went back and reanalyzed the parking requirement based on retail, restaurant use, and gasoline filling station. And if you assign appropriate square footages to the building, you come out with a required parking of 42 spaces. We're proposing 46, so with 42 to 46, we're just under 10% over. So we do feel like we're adequately parked without an excess of parking for the site. We did submit that response to the town planner, and he did indicate he did accept and feels that response is acceptable. Again, I had discussed with the town engineer a number of comments this afternoon. He unfortunately couldn't have any written comments, but we did go through a number of his concerns with the site plan this afternoon. One of them was with stormwater management. I understand the MS4 requirements for the town are pretty stringent. You do have significant requirements for water quality and detention. So we did submit a stormwater management analysis for the site. I assured the town engineer that the site, although this is an increase in impervious area, it's about a 4,000 square foot increase in impervious area. We are proposing appropriate means of detention to mitigate any peak stormwater runoff from the site. There is a detention, it's gonna be a very shallow, right up in this corner, right just north of the site. This is a very shallow stormwater detention basin. You almost just consider it just a grass ditch area. There is gonna be a stone infiltration in the middle, so we're gonna infiltrate whatever we can. It's gonna take entirely roof runoff from the building, so the roof is effectively disconnected from the rest of the stormwater management system. And that detention system alone is able to provide enough detention for the overall impervious increase to actually mitigate the increase in peak stormwater runoff. And at the end of the day, the site is designed appropriately to minimize and reduce peak stormwater runoff. The town engineer and I discussed, and he appeared satisfied with that. And all the other essential components for your MS4, we have deep sump-hooded catch basins to trap sediment and floatables from the site. The existing Rite Aid site had 2 water quality units that we're actually going to be maintaining for this proposed development, so we don't have to change out water quality units. We actually confirmed with the manufacturer of the water quality units, so we're pleasantly surprised that they were adequately sized. So there's going to be water quality measures for the site, stormwater detention for the site, and all those components are satisfied. The site is appropriately landscaped. You can see throughout the parking rows here, we have landscaped islands intermittently placed within the excessive rows of parking to account for the appropriate internal landscaping requirement per code. There's a number of street trees along the frontage here. There's actually required 2 trees per every 50 linear feet. It's much, but we're accommodating it. We need to accommodate the zoning regulations for landscaping. There is a vegetated buffer for any parking within the front yard setbacks, so we're providing the buffer here. The majority, and a couple extra trees over on the side. So landscaping per code is satisfied. Site lighting, there is no light spillage onto abutting properties. It's full cutoff, 0-foot candles at the property line. However, we do make sure that the canopy is adequately lit for site safety. The rear of the building, obviously, we have a drive aisle around the back, so that's adequately lit for site safety. Full erosion and setup control plan for construction. So the site is fully zoning compliant, like I mentioned. Before I hand it off to our traffic engineer, he's going to discuss a little bit more about why we're requesting the waiver for the specific zoning regulation section. But I did mention before, we received staff comments from the town planner. We had responded to all of those comments, and it appeared that we'd satisfied all the comments except for the one about this level of service drop, which we'll discuss with the waiver in a moment. We received comments from the water department. All the comments from the water department appear to be construction in nature, just confirming water main sizes, profile. So there's no issues with the water department comments that we have. And the comments but the comments that I discussed with the town engineer this afternoon, we were able to, I believe I was able to address all of his concerns. And I believe he sent an email to the assistant town planner indicating he was satisfied with any comments he had. So I believe all the staff comments were satisfied. Now, before I hand it over to Jason, with respect to this waiver we're requesting, section 9-03, it's essentially has your site plan approval process, and it says, so I paraphrase, the commission has the ability to waive any component or some component of subsections of 9.03. And section 9.03.17 specifically addresses level of service drops in a traffic study. Now, we needed to perform a traffic study for this site because the signal was out of time when the pharmacy had closed. The DOT came in and retimed the signal on us, and when we did a traffic study, we noticed that the signal timing was inadequate for this proposed development. And when we went through and reran the traffic analysis, we found that there is a very slight level of service drop with one of the afternoon categories, and I'll let Jason handle that in 1 second. But what we understand through our study is that the level of service drop, it's not significant, and I think we have a very good justification of how the commission is allowed and can waive that section to allow the site plan approval of the site. So unless there's any specific comments about the site layout, I'd like to hand it over to Jason Adams. You can talk a little bit more about the traffic.
Thanks, Mark. What we usually do is let everybody from your team talk, and then we'll open up the questions on this side. But
Okay, perfect.
Good evening. For the record, Jason Adams with McMahon Associates. And as Mark stated, we did prepare a traffic impact study that conforms to your zoning regulations, specifically looking at the issue around our project site driveway. This project, at the end of the day, should we receive approval here, will require an encroachment permit through the Connecticut Department of Transportation to change the signal timings, essentially back to what they were, maybe a bit of more minor modification from what they had been when the pharmacy was in place, but we will require Connecticut DOT approval. Section 9-03.17 has two primary components after explaining the necessity of the traffic impact study. One is that a level of service C be maintained along all through movements. So our study focused at the site driveway here with the Route 84 eastbound ramp and the adjacent signalized intersection to the north with the Route 84 westbound ramp. During all time periods, we looked at weekday morning, weekday afternoon, and Saturday midday peak periods. All of the through movements along Queen Street are shown to be level of service C with the project in place. So we meet that portion of your regulation. However, during the weekday afternoon peak period, we don't see any change in level of service. That's 9-03-17-3 in your zoning regulation, is you can't have a change in level of service as a result of a project. So the weekday afternoon peak period, we do not have a change in level of service along Queen Street. However, in both the weekday morning and Saturday midday, we see a level of service B become a level of service C only on the southbound movement on Queen Street approaching our site driveway. So one single movement between those two intersections for two time periods, but going from B to C. And that C, again, that C is also within your regulation. So we're still meeting the part of the regulation that requires the level of service C, which we feel is the more important part. That's maintaining your traffic flow in front of the site along the primary road, in this case, Queen Street. Our project, primarily as a function of the project being slightly bigger than the pharmacy that had been there before, does turn the one movement from B to C, and thus we are requesting a waiver from the commission, which, as Mark explained, we do interpret that you have the discretion to grant us this waiver. And just to put an end cap on all of that, again, we will need to go through the Connecticut DOT process. So they'll be looking at all of the information that we have prepared, and they, of course, will be very protective of the state roadway system, Queen Street, and ultimately have jurisdiction over our project's ability to change the traffic signal timings at that location. So be happy to answer any questions. Mark, I don't know if you have more within the presentation just to wrap up, or?
Thanks, Jason. Mark? I just said thanks to Jason, so, Mark, it looks like you're next up.
No, I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Okay.
And if you had any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, that's where this happened. So any member of the commission have any questions for the applicant? We'll start with Commissioner Coles.
This is for the traffic study piece. Can you, for the benefit of everybody, explain the difference realistically between low of service B and low of service C?
Sure. So level of service is on a grading scale of A to F. It's very similar to school grades, looking to avoid the F. Level of service A, really you're only going to see in areas that do not have much traffic at all. Like that's pretty rare. Along a corridor like this, close to a major interstate like 84, level of service A is kind of off the table, just as a matter of principle with the amount of traffic volume. So the level of service B to level of service C, getting into the technicalities of it is a difference. Level of service B is from 20 to 30 seconds of average vehicle delay. Level of service C is from 30 to 40 seconds of average vehicle delay. So there's the grading system is scaled based on the amount of average vehicle delay incurred by a driver. But in a corridor like this, level of service C and even level of service D is considered to be completely adequate to serve the needs of the corridor. So you want as low a level of service as you can get, but when you start factoring in development and multiple sources of traffic, such as a ramp system, Level of service C, or again, even level of service D is quite appropriate.
So are we looking at level of service that's from your driveway, so that raise in 10 seconds or so, that's from your driveway to Route 10?
We are looking, the key part of the zoning regulations deals with Queen Street itself. So the movement southbound is in the movement coming from the 84 ramps moving towards the site, that southbound movement. That's the particular movement where we see the change in level of service.
And that would be caused from more traffic coming out of your driveway?
Essentially, that is caused because there are more left turns into the site. So the southbound through movement is in conflict with the northbound left turn movement. So as the signal requires more time for the northbound left turn movement, it takes time away from the southbound through movement, similar to how it operated with the pharmacy. But again, our project is larger than the pharmacy. So we see the change in level of service as a result of that. It's how the signal is allocating time.
Thank you. That sheds a lot of light
Yep.
for me.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Caleb. Any other questions? Commissioner Santago?
So I think it's good that something is going there, because a building that remains vacant becomes blight, and that doesn't help anybody. So just a question, was the existing building, because like tearing down a building that size and then building another one, that's a lot of cost for you guys. So I'm wondering, what was you couldn't repurpose that building? It wasn't advantageous for you to repurpose that or change it a bit?
No, I think just because of the nature of how the fueling operations needs to be, especially with the gas pump operation.
Yeah.
I think I could probably flip it over to the existing building. So kind of, if you can kind of like focus on this area here.
Yeah.
If I flip it over, the entire existing building is pushed much more forward than our building's situated back in this area here, and then
Yeah.
the pumps need to be up here. So
Okay.
to have you know what?
It didn't work for your model.
Yeah, you're never going to put the pumps into a
Right.
building retrofit.
Okay.
And the angle is just not obtrusive.
Okay.
You know.
No, fair. If you go back to to your rendering.
Yep.
So first of all, do you have a rendering of the building that you're looking to
Yes.
put somewhere?
Yep. I appreciate you bringing that up, because I
How
did
about
miss bringing that up. So this is the front elevation of the building. I'll zoom into the bottom one here. This will be the
Yeah.
front. This is just a basic schematic now. We understand that signage is going to be completely separate, so don't hold signage to this application. But 7-Eleven obviously has the classic, I guess you can't really tell, but it's the orange, green, and red banding.
Yeah.
Give me one moment. There's an abundance of window glazing in the front, and that's actually for security effect. The store cashier is right up against the windows. They call it the fishbowl effect. For any police driving by, they can see in the store, see if any riffraff's going on. But it's also double fold, where the cashier can clearly see outside the building, see the pumps, make sure everything's okay. And then the rest of the architecture of the building. These are the gray area abandoned here. These are fiber cement panels. This is much more of a modern building. I think you've seen a lot of the new McDonald renovations have this kind of gray fiber cement
Yeah.
panels going on. This portion over here, this kind of darker blue, the color doesn't really reflect too well, but these are corrugated metal wall panels. And then these are wood siding, cedar, vintage wood cedar vertical board siding over on.
Wow.
Wow.
Goodness.
Wow.
That's not cheap.
Well, there's certain contenders in the area. I mean, certain other convenience stores who I'm sure you've seen around are really stepping up their game. So 7-Eleven wants to make a significant investment. It's a great intersection. I think it's a great use for it, and they want to make a presence.
Right, great. If you can go back to the site plan, please. So, because it is a great spot, and I can't remember another gas station on Queen Street that has a light to get in and out. I think Shell, you're kind of like, kind of, sort of, but not really. So in regards to that, and particularly in regards to the liquor store next to you, so my questions have to do more with traffic flow.
Okay.
Because people will use that cut-through from the liquor store to go through your property to get to the light Because getting out of the light of the liquor store on Queen Street isn't always kosher. So there's cut-through, there will be cut-through traffic there, and that liquor store is pretty popular. And now we're having folks come into a gas station versus a Rite Aid. And so you're gonna have increased traffic going everywhere. So I guess my question, not concern, well, I guess it's concern. My question has to do with, are we gonna have arrows? How's the traffic flow do you envision coming in and out of the property, both from Queen Street and indeed from the other access point? Because things could get kind of crazy getting in and out of there. Because I expect your property to be very popular.
I could
I
see,
mean, it's right off the highway, you're gonna see it. I mean, I can't imagine that doing badly.
so I understand your concerns. There's a couple ways to kind of look at this. Number one, this through movement I would consider that a benefit, especially if it's taking a little bit of traffic and reducing the taxation on Route 10.
Sure.
If anybody just wants to come here and then kind of go next door and do whatever business they need to do at the liquor store or vice versa.
Yeah, right.
So I think in that regard, it is a benefit.
Yeah.
Because it takes some of the tax off of the right of way. I don't know I can't speak on how much traffic would cut through.
No, I
but-
guess they're complementary. I see it as complementary back and forth,
Right.
I guess, so that's not my concern. My concern is how to process the flow of cars.
Right, right.
I mean, are you gonna have striping, are you gonna have arrows in and out, that kind of thing to manage the flow of cars? Not that it's complementary, I think it is complementary.
So having this front area through here, you generally want it a little bit more wide open. Having lane striping in there, it can be slightly confusing for drivers just because there can be a lot of movement, but this particular site design, we had the room to get what we wanted. In other words, I've done many convenience store gas stations. I've done the one on West Street in town, and some of them can be very tight.
Yeah.
If we can get up to about 30 feet between the parking spaces and the canopy, that's still fairly congested. We have 40 feet here between parking spaces and pumps. It's a nice wide open, it's very comfortable for the drivers. We feel very confident that there's plenty of room for cross-traffic parking, anybody parking or anybody coming to the fuel positions. We feel like that 40 feet is not only appropriate for your drivers, but any fuel deliveries coming
Right.
around, circulating the site have plenty of room and not blocking anybody.
Yeah.
I understand that, like I said before, we have a little bit of increase in impervious area, but I feel like it's appropriate here because we have the room, we can do it right. We have already managed the results of the impervious area, but I think we can kind of have the room and do it right here.
Right.
And then speaking of truck traffic, I did want to mention this. There was a concern, we had a preliminary meeting with town staff that any vehicle takers coming out may really clip this corner or exit and encroach into oncoming traffic here. We worked very hard with 7-Eleven's fleet team, which are not easy to work with sometimes. We convinced them to have the tanker come back around the building and exit, and the benefit of coming back here is exiting, coming straight down and not conflicting with anybody wanting to turn in.
Okay.
So we have the room to do that. We wanted to take advantage of that.
Okay,
We
that's-
satisfied some of the town's comments.
Great, that's a good answer. Can you talk a little bit more you talked about restaurant or the rooster thing or whatever, like what's the seating, how does that go? Is that takeout? Is like you sit down and have something? What is that?
I believe I have the floor plan.
Have you ever been to a 7-Eleven, Commissioner?
Yeah, but I don't never
I'm
sat down and
sorry.
ate. I mean,
You
I got
lined it up for me.
I got a Slurpee. I mean, what are you doing?
lined it up.
Zoom in here.
I'm old. I'm old school.
I would like to see as well, so I appreciate it.
Here's the zoom
For
here.
when I get my tenders.
The reason for my question is it's a sit-down type thing, and then you have people, it's additional parking. And so it's more not the use, I think that's great. It's more of the, how many people can we expect to remain there versus traffic flow going through. That's the basis of my question.
Right, I mean, I think it's a benefit for 7-Eleven personally, because if somebody's staying there and eating, maybe they see another snack that they want to finish off their lunch with.
Sure.
But anyway, so they have a new branding program where it's called Raise the Roost Chicken and Biscuits. So it's another type of food operation that they can offer to their clientele, chicken and biscuits. They offer pizza, there's pizza warming on site, And then obviously all your other snacks and ice creams and coffee.
Okay,
So,
that sort of thing. Okay.
There is seating up in this area here. It's not large. It's not like a large Chipotle or a Moe's or something.
That's my question.
It's
Okay.
not a McDonald's, you know. So.
You answered it. Okay, I get it. And I like different things. I think it adds to stuff. So anything that's new, I think is a new business model, because everybody wants a new business model. I think that's advantageous. I think that's good. That's all I have now, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you,
Commissioner Santaco. Any other questions from members of the
I all
commission?
have questions.
Commissioner Volpe, followed by Commissioner Selke.
I just wanted to say something that Commissioner Santago brought up. I actually like, as it currently is to get gas on Queen Street is quite dangerous in my opinion. And I mean that seriously because you can tell a lot of people get off the highway just to fuel up to get back on the highway. It's one of the great benefits of our town that sometimes that trickles down into tourism for us. But I think this would allow a little bit more, and I want to hope, a little bit more relief on Queen Street as we were discussing, so that people don't go to that mobile on your right by Starbucks, very dangerous situation over there with how people pull in. And the same thing for the show, when you get people trying to, pull their life in their hands by crossing the 4 lanes.
Yeah.
And I'm being dramatic because it is dramatic. I've literally seen my life flash before my eyes on Queen Street. So I think that this is important, especially what you're mentioning for us to consider, because it is a gas station with a light, with such prime highway access. Will it help the Queen Street problem? We can only hope, right? So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Volpe. Commissioner Selke?
Just one question concerning the traffic on Queen Street heading north, turning into your facility. Is there a left turn lane there? I'm trying to visualize it. Is there a left turn lane, and also, okay, and is there an arrow there?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a protected movement, so that movement will go only by itself. It goes with the left turn movement onto the ramp.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that it, Commissioner Selke? Commissioner Locks?
Yes, question. From Worldwide Liquors and you're going towards the pumps, is there a speed bump there in between?
Currently, no.
With that excess? My concern is people drive fast through a parking lot. And something like that would slow them down so they're not going into the people that are either backing out, pulling forward, whatever they're doing.
I think that is a good traffic calming measure, and I don't think we would be opposed to adding something to that effect.
I think that's a good thought, Sue.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right.
Yep.
So said, Sue?
Some signage in either a table or a bump.
Yeah, I think there's a stop sign there. I don't know if it's not
There
enforceable.
is,
It's
but
not
nobody pays
enforceable.
attention
Yeah, I know.
to it.
Yeah.
So a speed bump would be better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
pay
Slow it down.
attention to that.
Thanks,
Thank
Sue.
you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Wolowski?
My question is for you, Mr. Chair or staff. The gentleman referenced that he believes all staff questions and concerns have been answered. Is that in fact the case? Is everything anything pending, or has everything been answered sufficiently?
I did speak to Mr. Grocki today, and he accurately displayed portrayed all the engineering issues. The issue with the traffic signal is it's state controlled. I'm not sure the current phasing plan of the traffic signal and whether or not DOT is going to take any additional green time on Queen Street for that additional traffic for turning left onto the site, but that's going to be up to them. Unfortunately, they're not going to review it until we take action on this application. So I like the fact that the roof drainage is taken out of the equation to account for the increase in impervious area. So it's just minor housekeeping items. The applicant has to revise the plan in accordance with staff comments. Dave and the planning department reviewed the responses, but the plan has not been changed to accommodate those comments, but they were pretty minor in nature.
Thank you.
You all set, Steve? Commissioner Albanese?
Yeah, I just have, it's kind of interesting that this is before you, before us. I worked at a 7-Eleven in New Jersey when I was 17 years old, and this is definitely a little bit different, you know, so quite different
I wonder if
actually.
you have a conflict
So,
of interest.
and I worked long hours and did stocking and all that kind of stuff, but, so it brings
love
back some
that.
memories. But I have just two questions. Well, one question's just an inquiry more on the, I guess, not your mitigation plan, but maybe a contingency plan. Like, what are you doing as far as reusing or recycling of the materials that are there now? Is there something that 7-Eleven Corporation has within their, you know, their policies that they take existing materials that are valid or good and could use them for the existing building, right? And whatever infrastructure might be good within the building, at part of the building or other parts of the site. Right, and reuse and recycling. And then also, if that's something that stays within the community, like maybe that would go to Habitat for Humanities or for the veterans, or, I mean, what's the policy? What is the corporate policy?
Point because there probably are
Can you first identify yourself
sure,
and
I'm
then
sorry.
speak
Dorothy
closer to the
Fleischman.
microphone, please, so people can.
Dorothy Fleischman with 7-Eleven.
Okay.
I haven't been through the building personally, but I'm sure there's material in there that might be beneficial to someone, and we could absolutely look at doing that.
Is that a corporate policy, or that's something that you typically do, or not?
Well, with building demo, we don't really demo buildings of this size.
Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Danbury, Connecticut recently.
Right,
and
okay.
The building was really a mess, but the materials on site were recycled and taken away and used elsewhere, and we use it on site.
Okay,
So
all
if
right.
we can, pulverize some of the material and use it on site, we do.
Okay, so you might integrate that in your demo plan?
Absolutely.
Okay, and is that, the demo plan is something that we typically could look at, or would that be part of our application process,
So-
that we would look at the demo plan?
So, yeah, we did submit a demolition plan.
Okay.
And funny enough, not the building, but a large number of stormwater structures are proposed to be reused, because I was able to design the site
Great.
stormwater management system to not only keep a lot of the catch basins,
Okay,
assuming they're in good condition, we're gonna inspect them.
right.
But a lot of the catch basins and a lot of the existing pipes, which actually saves a ton on cost.
Sure
so you don't
does, yeah.
Excavate and replace. So I thought that was actually another benefit there. And if you notice this drive aisle up at the north here,
Right,
we don't need to change this entire drive aisle, which is kind of a rarity, but we're just gonna kind of mill and overlay it, so the pavement will look new. But in that terms of a site development, this is kind of a rarity, because we're able to reuse a lot of components that way.
excellent, that's great, that's great. And I think the only last comment I have and I know everybody's like sick of, sitting around, but there was the 7-Eleven south here on Route 10. I don't know how many years ago, and I don't know the marketing, what happened with that. It was never utilized, and I guess it just failed. I don't know anything, if maybe Lou has some information or input on that, but I'm thinking, because this is more closer to the highway exits, and then also with the encouragement of having all the bays now, and it's got a different kind of look about it and function.
So those legacy stores are really what we're trying to move away from.
Okay.
And so this will be the fourth one in the state that, if my timing works out the way I hope it will, with this new image. And this is really the kind of footprint that we're looking to do now.
Okay.
Your sort of neighborhood 7-Eleven stores are really going by the wayside, and we're about to embark on a new program to optimize them and renovate them, because there's lots of them that are really, need some work. So this is really the state of the art and what you'll see going forward. So we're pretty excited to bring it here, and we're lucky to have a lot of this size where we have the capacity to really make it convenient and not scary for, trucks and people and gas, and it works out really well. So we're really happy about that.
Okay, thank you. I'm done, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Terry. Commissioner Gork? Did you have a question? No?
I do not.
I don't know. Teresa was waving at you.
I have a
so-
question for you.
Oh, well,
Do we have to have a separate motion to grant the traffic waiver? Is that gonna be, is that how?
I think that procedurally, it probably makes sense.
Okay.
To do that when we get to that point. Any other questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Volpe for a second time.
For a second time, Commissioner Volpe here. I was just wondering, generally, is it a 24-hour 7-Eleven? Like, if I want chicken at midnight? Okay, cool. It happens, you never know.
Satisfy that
Actually,
urge.
a food truck.
After I get my car washed, I can go get some chicken.
Chicken and biscuits at midnight actually sounds pretty good, I gotta
Are
say.
you
don't know
all
what
set?
happens in
Are
our
you all
house.
set, Christina?
Yes, I'm all set.
You're all set? Okay, so my questions have to do, I did have the question on hours of operation, so it is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation?
Yeah, that's
That's what the
intent,
plan is. Lighting. What's your plan on the type of lighting? I tried to look at the plan to see if there was anything in there, but I didn't see anything. I could have missed
There-
it, but what
Yeah,
type of,
I'll admit, they're a little
what type of
confusing to me.
exterior lighting are you using on the building itself? Let's start with that.
On the building itself, well, I know they're all LED fixtures. I apologize, I'm not the architect, so I don't know specifically. Can you speak on any of this building lighting itself? I'm sorry, I'm just not the most well-versed with the.
Well, let me tell you where I'm going here, is that, you know, I'm particularly sensitive to dark sky requirements.
Okay.
And, you know, over the course of the last couple of years at least, that we've had sort of an unadopted policy or whatever to try to encourage, when these buildings are built, that there's dark sky compliant lighting on the exterior of that building. Well, I understand it's right next to 84, and they have their streetlights out there. I don't want to exasperate the problem by adding more lighting to it if we can avoid it. And it's simple gooseneck lighting that keeps the light on the building as what I think you're looking for.
Yeah, any
But
wall,
also keeps it out of the sky, so it doesn't make it.
right, there's certainly no uplighting. Yeah, I didn't want to get too technical into the site lighting, but there's a new BUG bug rating, and it has to do with uplighting. There's zero uplighting for this.
Okay.
They're kind of shying away from this full cutoff, but it's still considered full cutoff because of the old regulations haven't caught up yet. But yes, I can assure you, there's definitely no uplighting proposed for the building. Everything's downcast. Everything's cut off at the property line. It's all for site safety, all LED, but there should be no issues with 84.
Okay. I understand too that signs are a separate application. I will offer you this as the person who was point of contact on writing our sign regulations a couple years ago. The pylon sign that you have in your plan is not allowed. So you need to adjust that. And I encourage you to look at section 13 of our regulations. It talks about our sign regulations.
Yeah, we have full intention to submit a separate
And
plan.
I would hope that there's no plan, because I don't think it's allowed, to provide for anything beyond date, time, and temperature on an LED display. Although being a gas station, you are allowed to advertise up to 4 different prices. So with regards to the turning radii in the site, are you gonna offer diesel fuel as part of your operation?
Yes.
So truck traffic is possible to go into that area. I'm talking 18-wheelers maybe going in there to fuel
I mean,
up.
the site is not designed to accommodate, I mean, the nozzles on these are not high-flow nozzles. For any type of larger tractor trailer, you really need a high-flow nozzle.
Okay.
This is not gonna be the type of site.
I'm not versed in such things, so I appreciate the education, but,
The thing that I do know about tractor trailers is they don't want to come onto a site like this.
Okay.
They really object to mingling with consumers and having to make difficult movements, and, you know, there's just not enough room for them on this site, and they won't want to come.
and lastly, I appreciate that, thank you. I understand that too, right? We have a truck stop up the street, but, last question is your screening of your, waste, bins. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the existing dumpsters are in the same exact location as the proposed. We're not proposing to change the dumpsters at all. There is I'm just gonna try to zoom in a little bit more here. There is a masonry wall 3 sides around the dumpster today. We're gonna be proposing to maintain that masonry wall. We're just gonna maybe face it up, repaint it, and the doors on the front, the screening doors in the front, they're a little dilapidated. I think they're actually chain link with slats right now. 7-Eleven plans on revamping the doors, make it a little bit nicer to flow better with the architecture of the building. So it's gonna be the same exact spot as before. We're not changing it. We're not changing the footprint of it. But yes, it's gonna get a general facelift, and it has appropriate screening now, but it's gonna look better once we're done with it.
Okay, and building materials, I'm assuming you're using on the building just cinder blocks, nothing, you're not using any wood or anything like that, that's part of that design?
I believe so.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The foundations, the structure of the building is from SIPS panels. They're sort of a prefab panel.
Okay, okay, I don't have any other questions. Any other questions from members of the commission? Seeing none, staff, is this ready to be acted upon?
Yeah, it's ready for action, but if we could stipulate, staff comments, as part of the, motion.
Okay, so, does the applicant have anything else to add before we move forward here?
No, I think I just want to, thank you for your time. I know the last couple sessions have been pretty grueling, but we're happy to be here. I was happy to present tonight, and we're excited to be around.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Mark. Thanks to the whole team there.
Thank you.
You got a good firm, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm familiar, so, I'm kind of just kidding about the Weathersfield thing, but not really, so. Okay, so I think procedurally, if we want to move on this, we should start with the waiver of section 9-03.17, which has to do with the level of service part of the application. So I think that we should first entertain, if we're going to allow for foregoing that we should probably have a motion to waive that with regards to this application as it was presented.
So, Mr. Chair, just procedurally, wouldn't it be wiser to approve the site plan and then things according to it procedurally? Or do we have to do the plan, or is it contingent upon because a traffic plan is contingent upon this site? I mean, just order-wise.
In my brain, Peter, it's
Yeah.
working the other way. I don't think it really matters.
Yeah,
Because ultimately, it's gonna end up being whatever it ends up
All right,
being.
fair enough.
But in my mind, I wanna get the traffic to waive that so that we can approve the site plan or take action on
Okay,
the
you're
site
with
plan.
that way. Okay,
Because
I see where you're going.
it's almost like a sidewalk waiver,
it.
if you waive a sidewalk requirement.
I'm with you now.
Okay. Anyway, so if there's no further discussion, then I'll look for a motion on that part of the application.
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion that we approve the waiver at 9.03.17 on SPR 1825.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Salka. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Locks with a second. Any discussion? Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gork?
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolaski?
Yes.
Commissioner Locks?
Yes.
Commissioner Santago?
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes. Now we're looking for a motion on the site plan approval or otherwise. And as Mr. Grappone mentioned, he'd like to see a contingent on working through those engineering comments administratively. And I think, if I may, Commissioner Locks brought up a great idea about putting a traffic calming measure out there in the form of a speed bump, yes.
I agree with that.
So, but
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve SPR 1825 with stipulation that there's a speed bump between the two facilities, the liquor store and the new facility is 7-Eleven, and also to include the staff comments, complete the staff comments as part of this application.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Locks with a second. Is there any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chair, just one
Commissioner Ward, go
clarification. Do we want to specifically say speed bump or leave it as some measure to slow traffic? Because I don't know if there's humps or they have they have a bunch of different strips they could put down, so I don't know if it matters.
I
mean,
honestly
it's
think
in
speed bump
comments,
is the
so.
only thing that can slow them down.
Right.
If you put the grooving of the pavement,
Yeah,
that doesn't
they
slow them
just
down.
run
It
right
just
over it.
irritates them, doesn't slow them down. I think the speed
They're
bump.
gonna wreck their car on the speed bump, they slow down.
Yeah. I had to rip off the muffler then.
Commissioner Gork, are you satisfied with Commissioner Salka's?
Yeah, I was just worried if for some reason,
You put it very eloquently.
yeah, if they weren't allowed to actually have a speed bump there for some reason or not, then it would, yeah, but that's fine.
Jim, you don't think that a speed bump causes any issue there?
There's several kinds. There's speed tables, speed
Yeah.
humps, speed bumps. The one like we have out here is more of like a hump. The speed bumps are more like, you're really stopping, otherwise you're losing your undercarriage.
I think that's what
I
we
think
need.
that's what we
I
want,
think that's what we want.
They want.
rather than a stop sign.
The cattle grate doesn't work.
Okay. So we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on this? Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gork?
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolaski?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Santago, sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Salka,
Yes.
Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes. Congratulations. Good job, Lou. Excellent job
Welcome to
on this.
Southington.
Appreciate it. I'm glad to see that building is going somewhere, so.
For my midnight chicken.
So the next.
Chicken at midnight,
The
that's what I
next,
heard.
yeah. The next three items, items 8, B, C, and D, are all tabled because they're an active public hearing.
Yep.
So we can't take action on those. Moving to item 8E, Lovely Development Incorporated, special permit application to establish an open space preservation subdivision property located at 1268 West Street, owned by CB West LLC et al. In an R40 zone, SPU 652. What's our pleasure?
Mr. Chair, two things.
Commissioner
Yeah, I
Warwick,
need
you're
to
recused.
recuse myself. And the other thing, do we need to continue those other ones, or do we just, you can leave it at, do we need voice votes?
The public hearing is still open
Okay.
on those, so Commissioner Warwick has been recused, and Commissioner Albanese, we will sit you in his place.
Thank you.
So, again, we're on item 8E, and what's the commission's pleasure there?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve SPU 652. After reviewing section 3.07.3, section E, that I feel this is the most appropriate use of the land on the two options.
We have a motion from Commissioner Salker. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair. I think to agree with Commissioner Salka, I mean, we're faced with two options this evening. And from my perspective, the option as presented is give Southington and this use the best use of the property. And I think also by version of it now being a special permit, it allows this commission latitude to impact the site plan and address other things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to. So I think
Okay.
by virtue of doing this, it allows us a little more leeway, and I think given the explanation in regard from open space to the other one, I agree with Commissioner Salka that between the two, I think is the best way to go.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Any further discussion from members of the commission on this application? I will just say what I said earlier, that developing and enhancing our corridors for wildlife is a positive step. I looked at this as an opportunity to do that. Additionally, adding open space of any measure, whether it's 3 acres or 17 acres, is a positive thing that we all have been a part of over the last couple of years, adding, as I've said before, over 100 acres of open space through this commission over the last 2 years. And when looking at the options of 17 versus 3, the math is pretty simple. I hear the traffic concerns that people are bringing up. I understand that Churchill is very narrow at its entrance, or exit, I guess, depending on your direction. And I'm hopeful that something could be done about that. I'm not so sure that that's a role of this application or not, but we'll wait and see what the site plan brings to us later on down the line at some point, I hope. So with that, Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Volpe,
Yes.
Commissioner Walowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
alternate Commissioner Albanese,
Yes.
Commissioner Santago,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka,
Yes.
Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you sometime in the future. Item 8F, petition of the Southington Planning and Zoning Commission to enact a zoning regulation amendment of text to create a new section 11-24 of the zoning regulations regarding recreational cannabis / marijuana, zone amendment 611. This was tabled from August 17th. Commissioner Warwick is now reseated. Thank you for your service, Commissioner Albanese.
No problem. Thank you.
Do we have discussion / a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve ZA number 611 as
No,
submitted.
No, you're out of order, sir, so, thanks. Okay, is there any further, so we have a motion on the table, do we have a second? Do we have a second of the motion by Commissioner
You gonna second this?
Salka? Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wolowski with a second. Any further discussion on this?
I think just, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the staff, because I know you asked staff to draft language. And I thought staff, and I think legal counsel too, I don't know if Jeremy Taylor was part of
Yep.
it, but I think staff and legal counsel, I think, put forward a comprehensive regulation. And I think, like I said before, it further, I don't want to say confirms, but what this regulation did 2 years ago in regards to accepting medical marijuana and our thoughts toward recreational. So medical marijuana is indeed allowed in the town of Southington, but this would not be, and I thought they were very thorough in regards to thinking throughout supply chain and thinking throughout the impact it would have on the town, and not just a retail dispensary, but could change the landscape. And so I give council and town staff credit for, I think, drafting a well-written regulation.
Thank you, Commissioner Santago. Any further comments or notes from other commission members? Seeing none, Mary Ellen, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Bork?
Yes.
Commissioner Volpe?
No.
Commissioner Wolowski?
Yes.
Commissioner Locks?
No.
Commissioner Santago?
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
Hammersley is yes, motion passes 5-2. Moving on to item 8. Well, 8G is tabled because it's still an active public hearing. Item 8H, Diane L. Kelly, care of Jeffrey M. Massacott, site plan application for proposed addition with home office and 4 parking spaces, property located at 1506 West Street in a WSB zone, SPR 1827. The applicant is present. You just start by identifying yourself and give us your address, please.
Yep, my name is Jeff Massacott with my girlfriend Diane Kelly. We're the property owners of 1506 West Street. And
Maybe turn it over. Oh, you got it in? Sorry.
I think I got it. I hope I got it. We're the property owners of 1506 West. And I'm new at this. Harry Coles is our folks, and they couldn't make it this evening, so you're stuck with me. So if I can.
You're on the right one. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Okay. And he told me to start with this presentation one. There you go. Okay, we're getting there. So, as we said, we're from Bristol, and I'm an accountant, stockbroker, financial planner in Bristol. We're leasing a property right now in Bristol, but that property the lease is going to be ending soon to further development by somebody else. So we started looking for a property where we can open up a small in-home office for myself as well as a residence for us as well. So we looked all over. We found this place here in Southington on 15 West. A few things with the property that we liked. It's got historic value, which we were very intrigued. It was built in 1742, and at that time, George Washington, I guess, was 10 years old. And we'd like to preserve that property. That's the upfront property up here. We'd like to preserve that home. In the back of it, there was an addition back here that we had removed, or we're going to remove. We got it through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they were okay with that. That addition in the back was right on the property line. So now we're giving back, we're taking away from the property line somewhat. We got our variances permitted. The Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously approved it all. We got our setback, so we're gonna build our home here. We have our entranceway in from West Street, and for the safety of ourselves as well as the occasional clients that'll come to the office, we're not gonna permit an exit onto West Street. So we're gonna help with that traffic stuff that everybody's talking about. We don't want traffic going out onto West Street there. Instead, we'd like to have the traffic exit down below on West Pine, which they can also enter from West Pine as well. So we don't want to have any more traffic coming out onto 229 from our property. It'll come out from West Pine, And already at the end of West Pine, it's a right turn only. So, trying to, for the safety of ourselves and our clients. And then we're gonna have our driveway in the back of the house. It's a one-level home, single level. Inside on the second floor, there'll be a little loft bedroom up there, but it's otherwise cathedral ceiling and so forth. The existing home that's there now, the old house, we're doing our best to preserve everything there, to keep the antiquity. That's roughly gonna be 900 square feet, and our home is gonna be approximately 2,500 square feet. We thought that this would be a nice use for this property. One, it's the beginning of the West Street Business District, which we understand is supposed to be some like mixed-use, business, residential, and we thought that would be a nice segue into that neighborhood. Likewise, when you leave that district, it'll be a nice segue back to the residential areas, if you will. We're a small volume business. I'm an accountant, stockbroker, financial planner. I think this week I had 2 appointments. Maybe next week I have 3 or 4 appointments coming in, if that. During tax season, limited amount of clients coming in. We do a lot now with Zoom. A lot of my tax base, a lot of my clients, believe it or not, are from around the country. So I have clients sending in their paperwork from Florida, Texas, California, wherever. And a lot of the investment stuff that I do with the clients, we can do that over the phone. We don't necessarily have to have them come in the office. So again, pretty low volume, if that. Again, for the antiquity purpose, we want to save that property. For the traffic side of things, we're going to be very low volume, and if it helps with the traffic, I can always walk down to Dunkin' Donuts down the hill and hoof it back, and I won't take my car, and I won't affect the traffic that way. And as far as repurposing, we have a few trees on the property, some hemlocks that have gone wild, which we'd like to cut a few of those down. We're gonna have them dried, kilned, and use that in the building of our property too, like for posts in the porch and so forth, and repurpose some of those trees on the property. I guess that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Volpe?
So, as our resident historian on the commission, I'm just wondering, are you working with the State Historic Preservation Office in ensuring that you're keeping the conformity of the historic structure? Has there been any contact between that office?
Yeah, which was a little alarming when I talked to them. First of all, the property is not on the historic register.
I see that it's included as a secondary structure within the National Register District of Plantsville, actually. Charles Woodruff was one of the founders of Southington.
Correct. Yeah, and it's, I don't know, related to Sam Woodruff as well.
Correct. He wrestled with the Native Americans to gain respect, and that's how we built the town we are on today.
Right, well, yeah, it was still Farmington. We're looking for records in Farmington right now. No, so what happened was, I guess they tried to push it through for the National Historic Register back in, I believe, 87 or 88.
Likely, yeah.
And there were a handful of residents that chose not to continue, and they objected to it. So those properties did not get put on the historic register.
Is it on the State Register of Historic Places, then, if you've been in touch with the State Historic
That's
Preservation?
why I talked to the woman from the State Historic Register.
Okay.
And that's fine, because we still want to retain that property historic value. I mean, we don't want to take it down, we don't want to remove it.
I understand.
Yeah.
Are you attaching anything to the structure as it is currently?
Correct. So the I don't have a pointer, but this part here, the old house, we're going to be connecting a budding right up behind it for our residents right here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll technically be able to walk from our living room and head into the office, do some paperwork.
I am a
Back and have
reasonable
lunch.
historic preservationist. I do believe it's always better to, it is always better to try to do what you can to maintain. I love that this is your idea for it.
Yep.
I do just wonder, since Southington lacks in a historic district commission or really any kind of preservation regulations on our body, if maybe there can be coordination between the town planning department and SHPO to ensure that we're maintaining some sort of character, or if we stipulate within our regulations that the historic structure has to remain as it is visible from the roadway at this time. Will that change, in your opinion, what we see currently of the structure? Like, is it gonna look like a tiny little historic house with like a huge butt of new stuff? You know what I'm talking about?
And that's what I was talking to her about. The house is painted brown right now.
Correct.
Our house, we want white. And I'm insisting that that house remain brown in color.
Okay.
With, you know, the brown roof, cedar type of roof. Our house, we want it to remain white with a black tin roof. But I want that old house to stand out.
Okay.
I want that to be the focal point of that property, is what I'm looking to do.
And I appreciate that, because every historic structure lost is a piece of history that we can identify with. But again, to my fellow commissioners, I may say that I would stipulate that there be some sort of cooperation with SHPO to retain the historic, you know, effect of the structure, just to ensure. I trust what you're saying to me, it's on the record, but that's again one of the only things on West Street that remind us what West Street used to look like, right?
True,
As we
at the bottom
continue
of the hill on the left, there was one that fell apart in the woods or whatever
Yeah.
by the pet place.
I'm
there.
surprised it's lasted this long, Charlie Woodruff. Good job. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do in that house.
Yeah. Are you
Um,
planning on gutting the house?
No,
and-
no, no.
Okay.
No, unfortunately, can't afford to gut it and rebuild it. I've had one contractor that we talked to, and that was his first suggestion. Tear it down and build something on the footprint. Never mind, no, the wrong person. That's not what we want to do.
Excuse me just a moment. From hearing my fellow commissioners talking, I would just like to have from the planning department some sort of confirmation that this structure is not on the National Register or on the State Register or on any kind of secondary inventory. We did have a 2017 architectural study of our town. Was this structure identified? My questions do have a merit. I'm not joking. And I don't think it's appropriate to discuss that while I'm still talking to the applicant. Thank you. No further comments. I would like to see that, please.
Mary Ellen, do we do, as a part of procedure, do we look at such things, whether to see whether it's registered on some national register somewhere, or?
I mean, I'd have to look into that for here. I don't know how it's been.
I would think that that would be part of the zoning, information. Jim, do you have something?
The only one that I can recall in my tenure was the historic building by the YMCA that was supposed to be demoed under the application.
That's a historic district, isn't it?
No, there is no historic
okay.
district. So we have contacts from SHPO. It should be easy to email them and.
I don't think it hurts to ask as part of anything else that we regularly ask. Also, doesn't it say within our regulations that we can ask about the history of a structure, especially one that's built
I don't think
George
anyone's
Washington was
objecting to
10.
your request, Commissioner Volpe. I think you've won your argument, so.
I appreciate that.
But I just wasn't sure whether they did something like that in the past, or is this part of the procedure, so.
The YMCA property is the only one I can recall.
Well,
Yeah,
good thing
so-
we have an example.
So we should look. I know that when the south end arch zone was proposed, we discovered that there was some connection to the Underground Railroad, and that was preserved. Mr. Lovely preserved that as part of his development out there, so that was another one that was identified more recently, I think, than the YMCA, but it was one that was recent, so,
We can
So-
certainly look into it and
yeah.
circle back with you.
Again, I'm still saying that I really appreciate what you're doing and I value it. I also just think for this community's records, we should have that stuff and we should see it, especially for one of the oldest houses in our town. 1744? It's not a joke.
1742.
Dear God. What?
Yeah.
We weren't even founded as a town yet.
It's also a pain in the neck going to Farmington and looking up the land records for this property.
I can bet. I can
Everything's
bet.
measured in rods and all this other stuff.
Yeah, you have to go from
Yeah,
the rock at the corner to Layla whoever's
next
property.
to the birch tree. You know,
Yeah,
it's like-
I do it often, yeah. I appreciate the efforts that
Horse
it
height,
takes.
and was it a big
Yeah.
horse, a miniature horse? I don't, you know.
It's a lot of effort, and I really do commend you on that. I hope you see where I'm coming from asking for these
Oh,
things.
yeah, I mean, if you want to put that stipulation, that's fine, because that's what we're doing anyway.
Well,
I
why don't we
appreciate
find out what the status of it is before we take action on it?
Thank
So I
you.
think that's something that's remains outstanding on the application, so.
I'm sorry?
We're just gonna wait to hear back from town staff on whether it's registered on anything or what the historical significance on it is. So when we take any action that we might take, we have that information for our due diligence, if you will.
All right, I mean, I know there's a process for everything. We were just hoping that the sooner we can get this go through.
I'm
we
not
wanna get
trying to,
shovels in the
I'm not
ground.
trying to delay you at all. I don't think anyone up here is trying to delay you at all. We're just trying to be cautious, given the historical
fine.
significance of that building and structure, and make sure we're not cutting off our nose to spite our face, to
Yeah.
put it a different way, I guess. Commissioner Coles?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up question. You guys had a little back and forth about the color scheme in the front and the back. The rear space is going to be about 2,500 square feet. The front's going to be about 900 square feet. The rear building, like the finish schedule of that, is it going to be similar to the front? Is it going to be kind of like that same architectural theme, I guess is my question?
Nope. It's, well, I guess, yes, no, I don't know. This is the back of the house, the garage doors and the back porch and so forth. That's a side looking north from West Pine. But I guess the front of the house, here's the old house to the right, as it stands, and then we're gonna have a porch off to the side and then going to the front of our, country-style home, if you will.
Looks compatible.
You know?
Lovely.
So, and then here we've got like, we call them fake barn doors. I mean, there's nothing behind it, but, you know, for the aesthetics and so forth. Like I say, cathedral ceiling in here. We're gonna have a loft bedroom up on this side. And like I say, we're gonna retain the old house here. And the old house, like I said, we wanna keep it brown in color. We wanna maybe cedar roof or something, but we wanna retain that structure. And then the house, we're gonna have it white with wide siding, and we want to do that black tin roof and stuff. So this is our final place. This is our final home. Some people move north when they retire. Some people go south. We figure we're just going to go to Southington. That's as far south as we're going.
Good
And
decision.
We're happy with that.
I like
Looking
that.
forward to it.
It's a wonderful home.
It's better than Weathersfield.
Thank you.
Thank you for the description. I appreciate it.
You all set, Caleb?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission?
I just had, what's the point in delaying to find out if it's historical, if we wanted to stipulate that they work or coordinate?
I think we want to make sure that it's not registered on any registry out there, historical specifically.
Would
And
that
then-
deem it so they couldn't do this, you're saying?
I think it's just something that if it was, or if there's something there, that we might want to approach it a little bit differently than not knowing what might be there.
Does that mean you
It's a
can get an approval
precautionary move,
stipulation?
is what it is.
Correct, like, excuse me, Mr. Chair, but correct, that's what we're kind of saying, is just having all of that information before us will give us a more sound reasoning based off of the site plan that you're showing us, the brown and the white. You know, also the National Register or any kind of inventory form should tell us what building materials are in the structure, how sound the structure is. It's worth it to find out about a house that old, in my
So
opinion.
you all set, Jeff?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
didn't want to delay him for,
Yeah, I don't
If it
think we're
didn't come
trying,
out to
I don't
mean
think we're
anything.
being unreasonable.
because I was
think
all
it's just-
fine with
it's just a-
stipulating
it's
that
just a-
they, like Christina said, that they work with whoever they need to work with.
It's just a safety precaution,
Okay.
I think, more than anything else, so.
Alright.
Any other questions or comments? We're obviously gonna leave this one open, and we'll look for a motion to table it, but any other, before we do that, any other comments or questions of the applicant from members of the commission? Mary Ellen, could you work with your staff, please, to find as much information as you can on this one?
Yes,
And just pass it over to us when you get it?
yes.
Our next meeting is on September 21, 7 o'clock in this location. All right?
I think we'll get further in the line, then cool. It's kind of late.
Yes, I know. So do we have a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table, Mr. Chair, until the 9/21 meeting, pending planning department and engineering comments or
Okay,
whatever.
we have a motion from Commissioner Volpe. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Locke with a second. All those in favor, yes? Yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to 8I, request a renewal of existing registration for regulated activities in an aquifer protection area, 600 Woodruff Street. My understanding is this is the National Guard facility, and this is just a procedural move. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Yep. Do you have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Commissioner Locke with a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Santiago, any further discussion? Do we need the roll on this one, Mary Ellen?
I
Voice vote? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 8J, request the release of a $4,800 PI bond, 480 Queen Street, SPR 1593. Mr. Capone, is this ready?
Ready for action. This is actually the liquor store sidewalk that they installed, and it's ready for action.
Okay, any discussion on this? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve SPR 1593 for the request for release.
Do we have a motion, Commissioner Salka? Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sataga with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8K, request for release of a 1,000 ENS bond, 480 Queen Street, SPR 1593. Mr. Capone, I assume that this is ready as well?
Yes, from an erosion standpoint, they're all
Okay.
stabilized.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve SPR 1593 request for release.
I have a motion, second.
Second.
Commissioner Wodowski with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 8L, request for release of a 6,600 P&I bond, 1116 West Street, SPR 1637. Mr. Capone, is this ready?
Ready for action. This is the Dunkin' Donuts sidewalk.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion, we approve SPR 1637 request for release.
Motion for Commissioner Salka. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Santago with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, administrative items. Request for administrative approval site plan application of L&L West LLC for proposed Starbucks on property located at 1095, 1103 West Street, owned by S&G LLC in the B zone. This is SPR 1826. Mary Ellen or Jim, do you want to talk about this?
I think
Mr. Lovely.
should present.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Mark Lovely, member of L&L West LLC. The property located at 1095 West Street was original site plan approval that on this parcel, 1103 had a 3,000 square foot facility approved with a drive-through. With the new concept, we are actually going down to a 2,000 square foot building instead of a previously proposed approved 3,000 square foot building. So that's really only the change. All the traffic was designed on the site to have a 3,000 square foot building here with a drive-through. There was another drive-through on the property that was approved by the DOT too that was not being used also. So basically the change is just going from the 3,000 square foot building, which was formerly for a coffee shop, down to a 2,000.
Thanks, Mark. And if I remember correctly, this was approved as a bank with a drive-through attached to it.
Exactly, and then we had the, and also we had the drive-through for the coffee shop at the other end, which we did not install there.
Okay. So staff is looking for the ability to administratively approve this. Is there any objection to that?
Mr. Chair, I just want to mention I'd like to recuse myself from conversation on this.
Commissioner
in
Bork
case.
is recused.
Rather be
Commissioner
safe.
Albanese, we'll sit you again. You're busy tonight. Seeing no objection from anyone, do we need a motion on this, Mary Ellen or Jim, or are you good with that?
We'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. Item number 10, legislative updates. Mary Ellen, you got anything for us?
Yes, so I emailed, I don't know how detailed you guys want to get tonight, but I did email all of you one of the summaries, couple summaries actually. I think there was the one I found useful was the one from Halloran Sage, which kind of outlined the significant legislation that's passed recently. The ones that I kind of wanted to bring to your attention are the predominantly the regulation associated with the accessory dwelling units, which essentially requires accessory dwelling units as of right in any zone that allows development for a single family home.
if, and there's certain requirements for that, if the town can opt out of this regulation. If you don't opt out by January 1st of 2023, it essentially becomes effective regardless, and your regulations become void. So, you know, there's some strict things for that one. That one definitely differs from what Southington currently allows.
Mhm.
It would allow for detached accessory apartments as of right. Right now, Southington only allows parent, grandparent
Right,
in the
right.
existing dwelling. So there's definitely some changes to that. So that one is one that has a time frame associated with it. There's a second regulation for parking that also has an opt-out clause so essentially your regulation shall not require more than one parking space for each studio or one bedroom dwelling unit, or more than 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit with 2 or more bedrooms unless the municipality opts out. That conflicts with the current regulations as well. So we'll either need to decide to modify the regulations, or the commission chooses to, you can choose to opt out of that one as well. Those two have the timeframes. The third one is the adoption of an affordable housing plan. Has to be prepared and adopted by June 1st of 2022. I have reached out to a couple consultants and gotten some quotes on that, so the wheels are spinning. So that one we can work with and meet that deadline.
So we don't have an existing plan in place?
An existing affordable housing plan, no.
Wow.
So that's one that has a time frame, but I think there's time to meet that one. Let's see, outdoor dining is another one beginning April 1st of 2022. You must allow outdoor dining as an accessory use to pretty much any food establishment, subject to local administrative site plan review. I would probably want to look at the regs for that. I know some of the zones do allow it, but you know, I don't necessarily know that does everywhere where businesses are allowed. So those are the ones I wanted to get on your radar. There are many other things that the legislation calls that I think you guys are okay with respect to minimum floor area, cottage food industry. I believe that one fits. There's a couple other ones. Can't remember what the other one was. So there's several that are already met. I don't think you need to really worry about, but these other ones, I think, you know, like I said, I don't know how deep you want to go into conversation tonight,
Yeah.
but it was definitely something I wanted to get on your radar because there are timeframes associated with those. And
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Could you do us a favor and just circulate those memos to us so we have those?
Yep.
And I'm just gonna ask members to look at those and be prepared to come and talk about those on when we're back here again on the 21st. You know, I have my own perception. I won't share it right now, but if people could take a look at those so that we could do whatever we have to or want to do on the 21st, that we're prepared to do that.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think they're out on our mail.
I don't know if the memo ever got circulated, Mary Ellen, you ever?
so I sent them
She sent
two guidance
Yeah.
memos.
Yeah, I
that,
have 'em.
Okay,
We have 'em,
okay.
yeah.
Okay,
I'm just looking at them now.
so if members could just take a deeper look at those, and in my case, at least look at them, because I obviously missed it, but
I think it's under Karen. I don't think that,
can
Karen sent it out.
we just be prepared to have an agenda item on this at the next one, and we'll put it towards the tail end, so
Yep.
public doesn't have to really wait around for this technical discussion, if you will, and just think about what you want to do. All right, anything further on that right now, or?
No, I will follow it up too with just a little bit of a summary on the act versus what the current regs are, just to
Okay.
kind of help you guys with some
That
of
would
that
be great.
guidance,
That's
so I
probably
will follow up
perfect.
with that.
Okay. Thanks, Mary Ellen. Moving on to item number 11, items scheduled for public hearing. Do we have anything out there other than what's been tabled tonight?
No.
Nothing? Okay, and we have two new applications that are on our docket that we'll be looking at next time. Do you want to say anything about those, or we'll just let them speak for themselves?
The site plan ones, so there's,
Yep.
in addition to an existing building up, in 120 Industrial Drive, those, I'm assuming those are the ones you're talking about, right? I believe it's an electric, is it electrical, do electrical work in their existing building, and they're gonna put an addition off of the back side of that. Planning comments have been sent to the applicant on that. Have you sent your comments? Okay. So we're working on the comments for those, and then the other one is a site plan review for for a proposed drive-through at the, Queen Street Starbucks.
Oof.
Do that. Oh,
It's,
wow.
so they're looking to, acquire an easement from the state to expand out into the side, but, that's another one that's,
Yeah.
that's coming.
Wow.
Okay. Fun just keeps on coming down the pike on us, right? With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Salker, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wolowski, apparently everyone else wants to stick around.
Thank
but-
you, Steve.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We'll still be waiting.
Yeah, I didn't get
Of course.
Yeah.
Enjoy your evening.